Welcome to our chilling journey through the Golden State's most haunted and cursed churches. California, known for its sun-kissed beaches and bustling cities, hides a darker, more sinister side beneath the bells, stained glass, and religious devotion. Some of the state's churches harbor sinister energies, tragic histories, and restless spirits. From ancient Catholic missions to modern chapels, these houses of worship have become epicenters for paranormal activity, ghost sightings, and whispered legends. Today, we explore the 25 most cursed churches in California, uncovering the eerie tales and supernatural encounters that have terrified congregants and visitors for generations. Mission San Juan Capistrano, often called the Jewel of the Missions, is famous for its beautiful gardens, historic architecture, and the annual return of the swallows. Yet beneath its picturesque exterior lies a history steeped in tragedy, mystery, and restless spirits. Founded in 1776 by Spanish missionaries, the mission has long been a place of devotion and community, but it is also a site where countless lives were lost. Native Americans, early settlers, and clergy alike, which some believe has left behind lingering energies that refuse to rest. Visitors to San Juan Capistrano often speak of an unsettling feeling as they wander through its historic grounds. In the quiet hours after sunset, the mission takes on an eerie atmosphere. The sound of footsteps echoing across empty stone corridors is frequently reported, even when no one else is present. Many describe these noises as deliberate, measured steps, as if someone or something is pacing the halls, retracing routines from centuries past. It is as though the spirits of the missionaries still walk the mission, fulfilling duties long abandoned in death. The gardens, normally serene and fragrant with blooming flowers, are often the site of spectral sightings. Apparitions of monks in flowing robes have been seen moving among the orange trees and fountain courtyards. Witnesses describe them as semi-transparent, with indistinct features but recognizable forms of the colonial-era clergy. Some appear to be carrying prayer books or lighting candles that vanish before anyone can approach. Others are observed silently tending to the gardens, performing rituals and movements consistent with the mission's original daily life. These sightings are often accompanied by sudden drops in temperature, an icy wind that passes over a courtyard even on warm evenings, or the faint scent of incense without any visible source. Inside the mission chapel, the atmosphere is particularly charged. Visitors recount hearing whispered prayers, as though the clergy of the past are reciting liturgies behind closed doors. Occasionally, these whispers form coherent words or phrases, sometimes in Spanish, sometimes in older dialects no longer commonly spoken. On certain nights, the church bells are reported to ring without anyone touching the ropes, creating a mournful sound that resonates through the surrounding town. The combination of visual and auditory phenomena has led many to believe that the spirits of the mission are particularly active after sunset, perhaps drawn to the sacred nature of the site and its centuries-old rituals. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a tour guide who spent years working at the mission. Late one evening, while closing the chapel, she noticed a shadow moving across the nave. Assuming it was a fellow staff member, she called out, but there was no response. The shadow moved deliberately, stopping near the altar, before slowly disappearing. Shortly afterward, the temperature in the chapel dropped sharply, and a faint smell of burning candles, though no candles were lit, permeated the air. Experiences like this are not uncommon, and multiple staff members and visitors have reported similar encounters over the years. The mission's cemetery adds another layer of mystery. The final resting place of many Native Americans and early settlers is said to be a focal point for ghostly activity. Figures have been seen walking among the tombstones, and some visitors report hearing distant cries or murmurs carried on the wind. Lights have been observed flickering among the graves at night, though no source can be found. Some speculate that these phenomena are echoes of the suffering and hardship experienced during the mission's early years, when disease, harsh labor, and colonial conflicts claimed countless lives. Beyond the individual ghosts, the mission itself seems to exert a subtle but pervasive influence over those who enter after dark. Hikers and late-night photographers often describe a feeling of being watched, a sensation that persists even in well-lit areas. It is a quiet, pressing awareness, as if unseen eyes track every movement, combined with occasional glimpses of movement at the edge of vision. Many report a heaviness in the air, an oppressive energy that lingers long after they have left the mission grounds. Despite the paranormal activity, Mission San Juan Capistrano continues to welcome visitors, blending its rich history with its reputation for hauntings. Daytime tours showcase the mission's architectural beauty and cultural significance, while evening visitors may experience something far less tangible. For some, the ghostly presences are terrifying, but for others, they provide a hauntingly beautiful connection to the past, a reminder that history never truly disappears, leaves its mark in the walls, the gardens, and perhaps even in the spirits of those who once walked among us. Mission San Juan Capistrano is more than just a historic landmark. It is a place where time feels fluid, where past and present coexist, and where the line between the living and the dead is perceptibly thin. Whether one believes in ghosts or views them as echoes of history, there is no denying that the mission carries a unique, almost otherworldly energy. From phantom monks gliding through courtyards to whispered prayers in deserted halls, the mission remains a testament to both the spiritual devotion of its founders and the enduring presence of those who never truly left. Mission San Gabriel Archangel, located in Los Angeles County, is one of California's oldest and most historically significant missions. Founded in 1771 by Father Serap, it has stood for over 2 centuries as a center of faith, education, and community. Its white adobe walls, red-tiled roofs, and iconic bell towers make it a landmark of Spanish colonial architecture. But beyond its beauty lies a history marked by unrest, hardship, and mystery. Over the years, numerous visitors have reported strange phenomena, including shadowy figures moving silently between bell towers, unexplained cold spots in the chapel, and the faint sound of prayers being recited in languages long forgotten. Mission San Gabriel Archangel is not only a historical monument, but also a site where the spiritual and the supernatural seem to converge. The bell towers are the most commonly reported areas for strange activity. Visitors often describe shadowy figures gliding silently across balconies or appearing briefly in doorways. These figures are usually indistinct, human-shaped, and dressed in historical attire, suggesting the presence of priests or missionaries from centuries past. They often vanish when approached, leaving a lingering sense that the mission is not as empty as it appears. Witnesses report an eerie stillness when these apparitions appear, a pause in the ambient sounds of the night that emphasizes their sudden, ghostly presence. Some have even described a sense of intentionality in their movement, as if these spirits are performing duties that were left unfinished long ago. Inside the chapel, visitors frequently encounter sudden drops in temperature, sometimes accompanied by a sense of heavy pressure in the air. One moment the space is calm and warm, the next a cold draft sweeps through, chilling those present. These cold spots often appear near the altar or along the side chapels and are frequently reported alongside auditory phenomena. The combination of temperature changes and visual encounters creates a layered experience that leaves many feeling as if they are not merely walking through a building but through history itself, where the presence of those long gone remains palpable. Auditory experiences are another hallmark of the mission's hauntings. Some visitors report hearing the faint sound of footsteps echoing along stone corridors, as if someone is walking behind them, only to find the hallway empty. Others hear whispers, prayers, or chanting in languages that are no longer spoken, drifting through empty rooms and fading just as suddenly as they appear. These sounds often coincide with visual sightings of shadowy figures or flickering lights, reinforcing the impression that the mission's past continues to manifest in the present. The voices of past priests, reciting prayers and performing rituals, are among the most commonly reported auditory phenomena and contribute to the mission's reputation as a haunted site. The mission's courtyards and cloisters, while serene during the day, take on a more unsettling character at night. Shadowy figures are said to move along arched walkways, disappearing behind columns or archways. Some visitors report feeling subtle touches or the impression of being guided by unseen hands. Ghostly lights have been seen hovering above the gardens or reflecting in fountains. And some witnesses describe the sense of being observed by unseen eyes from the shadows. These experiences suggest that the spiritual energy of the mission is not confined to the chapel or bell towers, but permeates the entire complex. Historical context provides insight into why Mission San Gabriel Arcangel might be so prone to paranormal activity. The mission was established during the Spanish colonization of California and was home to priests, missionaries, and indigenous Tongva people, many of whom lived under difficult conditions. Illness, labor, and conflict claimed many lives on the mission grounds, leaving behind emotional and spiritual residues. The priests themselves faced isolation, disease, and hardship, adding layers of intensity to the site's history. The cumulative effect of these experiences is believed by many to have created persistent spiritual energy, manifesting today as lights, shadows, cold spots, and mysterious sounds. Even mission staff and longtime caretakers have reported encounters with the unexplained. Some recall seeing cloaked figures moving along corridors late at night, hearing chanting from empty rooms, or feeling sudden chills when alone. Photographs taken after dark occasionally reveal orbs or indistinct shapes, providing visual evidence that aligns with witness reports. These repeated and consistent accounts have cemented the mission's reputation as one of Los Angeles County's most haunted historic sites. Mission San Gabriel Arcangel remains a vital piece of California's heritage, blending history, architecture, and spiritual significance. By day, it is a place of worship, cultural preservation, and education, drawing visitors who come to admire its beauty and learn about its past. By night, however, the mission transforms into a space where history and the supernatural intersect. Shadowy figures glide silently, cold spots descend without explanation, and faint prayers echo along empty corridors. For those who venture after dark, Mission San Gabriel Arcangel offers more than a connection to California's colonial history. It offers a haunting encounter with the lingering spirits who continue to inhabit this sacred space. Mission Santa Ynez, nestled in the rolling hills of Santa Barbara County, is one of California's most historically rich and architecturally stunning missions. Established in 1804, it has been a center of faith, culture, and education for over 2 centuries. Yet beneath its tranquil exterior lies a history shadowed by tragedy and sorrow. During its construction, many Native Americans, forced into labor, succumbed to harsh conditions, disease, and exhaustion. Their suffering, some believe, has left an indelible mark on the mission, and it is this legacy of pain and unrest that gives Mission Santa Ynez its reputation as one of California's most haunted sites. Visitors arriving at the mission often comment on a strange, almost palpable heaviness in the air, especially as twilight descends. The peaceful gardens, fragrant with citrus and roses, can suddenly feel oppressive, as though the past is pressing forward to make itself known. Many have described hearing whispers carried on the wind, voices too faint to fully comprehend, yet unmistakably human. Some claim the whispers are anguished, almost pleading, echoing the pain and suffering of the mission's earliest workers. The effect is subtle, at first a sense of unease or a fleeting chill, but for those sensitive to the paranormal, it quickly becomes undeniable. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at Mission Santa Ynez occurs near the old cemetery. Rows of weathered headstones mark the resting places of those who lived, worked, and died at the mission. On certain nights, visitors have reported seeing ghostly processions winding silently among the graves. These spectral figures are described as semi-transparent, clad in the traditional clothing of the early 19th century, moving slowly as if bound by ritual or duty. Sometimes the apparitions appear to be carrying tools or offerings, perhaps reenacting their lives or labor long after death. Witnesses often report a sudden drop in temperature as the figures approach, accompanied by a low hum or the distant sound of chanting that vanishes just as quickly as it began. Inside the mission itself, unexplained occurrences continue to unsettle those who wander its halls after hours. Some report hearing footsteps echoing along stone corridors where no one is present. The sound deliberate and methodical, as if someone is pacing or performing a nightly ritual. Others describe the sensation of being watched while exploring the chapel or the adjoining cloisters. Visitors have noted flickering shadows at the periphery of their vision, darting between arches and alcoves, only to vanish when directly observed. Many theorize that these manifestations are the spirits of Native Americans and early settlers who remain tied to the mission, their energy unable to move on due to the traumatic circumstances surrounding their lives and deaths. Auditory phenomena at Mission Santa Ynez are particularly chilling. Anguished cries, often described as a mixture of pain and warning, have been heard emanating from the cemetery or the mission grounds after dark. Some visitors claim to hear conversations in languages no longer spoken, a haunting echo of Spanish missionaries and Native American workers interacting centuries ago. At times, these sounds are accompanied by the faint scent of incense or smoke, even when no candles or fires are burning, adding a surreal, almost ceremonial quality to the encounters. Paranormal investigators have noted that these events often occur during periods of heightened activity, such as during storms or at the hour of dusk, when the natural world itself seems to dim and quiet. The gardens of Mission Santa Ynez, typically a place of serenity, have also been the site of supernatural sightings. Shadowy figures are sometimes seen moving silently among the orange trees and flower beds, pausing near statues or fountains, as if in contemplation or prayer, further fueling the belief that the mission is alive with spiritual activity. Some visitors have even reported feeling invisible touches, a hand on the shoulder or a brush of air across the back, as they walk the paths alone at night, reinforcing the sense that they are not alone. Historical accounts lend context to these modern experiences. The construction of Mission Santa Ynez demanded extreme labor from the local Chumash people, who faced disease, harsh conditions, and strict discipline under the Spanish clergy. It is believed that the unresolved suffering of these individuals is what manifests in ghostly sightings and unusual phenomena today. In addition, deaths from illness and natural causes during the mission's early years likely contributed to a concentrated spiritual energy, creating an environment where the veil between the living and the dead feels thin and permeable. Despite, or perhaps because of its haunted reputation, Mission Santa Ynez continues to attract visitors, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts alike. By day, it offers an educational journey into California's colonial past, showcasing architecture, artwork, and gardens that reflect centuries of devotion. By night, however, it transforms into a place of spectral intrigue, a site where history and the supernatural intertwine. Those who explore after sunset often leave with stories of ghostly processions, anguished whispers, and a sense of profound connection to the lives that shaped the mission long before the modern world arrived. Mission Santa Ynez remains a compelling destination for those drawn to the mysteries of the past. The blend of architectural beauty, cultural history, and paranormal activity makes it a unique site where faith, tragedy, and lingering spirits coexist. Whether one views the hauntings as echoes of history or genuine supernatural encounters, the mission undeniably leaves an impression on all who enter. For those brave enough to wander its grounds after dark, the whispers of the past and the shadowed figures among the graves serve as a haunting reminder that history is never truly gone. It waits, watching, and sometimes moving, just out of reach. Mission San Luis Obispo de Tolosa, located in the heart of San Luis Obispo County, is one of California's oldest missions. Founded in 1772 by Father Serra, its white adobe walls, red-tiled roofs, and grand bell tower stand as a testament to centuries of history and devotion. By day, the mission is a serene place of worship and reflection, attracting visitors who admire its architecture and cultural significance. But after sunset, a different side of the mission emerges, a side filled with mystery, unease, and unexplained phenomena. Many who have wandered the grounds at night speak of strange lights flickering around the chapel, shadowy figures performing rituals, and a heavy atmosphere that feels as though unseen eyes are constantly watching. The chapel itself is often the center of these eerie experiences. Visitors frequently report seeing small, flickering lights that appear without any obvious source. These lights move across the walls, hover near the altar, or dance along the hallways, sometimes vanishing as suddenly as they appear. Some witnesses describe the lights as warm and golden, reminiscent of candle flames, while others describe cold, bluish glows that cast an unsettling pall over the mission's interior. These lights often appear in areas where the mission's priests and missionaries would have conducted daily rituals, suggesting that the energy of past religious practices still lingers in these spaces. Perhaps the most compelling and unsettling reports involve the appearance of a priestly figure. Witnesses describe seeing a man dressed in traditional clerical robes, moving with purpose through abandoned sections of the mission. He may be kneeling in prayer, performing ceremonial gestures, or walking silently along the corridors. Approaching him often causes the figure to vanish, leaving only the sense that someone or something was present. Many who encounter this figure also report a sudden drop in temperature, a heavy feeling in the air, or a sense of being observed, as though the mission itself is aware of their presence. Auditory phenomena add to the mission's haunting reputation. Some visitors hear faint prayers or chanting drifting through empty hallways, often in languages no longer spoken. Others report footsteps echoing along stone corridors, soft murmurs, or doors opening and closing on their own. These sounds frequently accompany sightings of the priestly figure or the flickering lights, making the experience immersive and chilling. The combination of visual, auditory, and sensory phenomena gives the impression that the mission is not merely a building but a space where the past and present coexist, and where the spirits of those long gone continue to linger. The courtyards and gardens, while beautiful by day, take on an otherworldly quality at night. Shadows stretch and shift across the walkways, and some visitors report feeling subtle touches or sensing an unseen presence moving alongside them. Ghostly lights have been spotted hovering above fountains and flower beds, their reflections glimmering in the water. In these moments, the mission feels alive in a different way, as if every corner, archway, and pathway holds a trace of the centuries that have passed. Mission Dolores, formerly known as Mission San Francisco D, is one of the oldest structures in San Francisco and a cornerstone of California's Spanish colonial history. Founded in 1776, it has witnessed centuries of devotion, suffering, and transformation. Its iconic adobe walls and bell towers stand as a testament to both faith and resilience. But beneath its picturesque facade lies a darker legacy. The mission grounds are known to house countless burials, with the remains of Native Americans, settlers, and missionaries interred beneath its floors and surrounding gardens. Many believe that the lingering energy of these lives lost over centuries has left the mission a hotspot for paranormal activity, making it one of the most haunted religious sites in the state. Visitors to Mission Dolores often speak of a peculiar stillness that descends upon the grounds as twilight fades. The mission's usual hustle and bustle gives way to an almost palpable quiet, and in this quiet, strange phenomena frequently occur. Witnesses have reported hearing whispers echoing along empty corridors, voices that seem to speak in half-formed words, or murmurs that are impossible to attribute to anyone present. Some describe these whispers as urgent, as if the spirits are attempting to communicate, while others perceive them as sorrowful lamentations, echoing centuries of suffering and lost lives. The whispers can appear anywhere, from the chapel aisles to the cloisters, but are most often reported at night, when the air is thick with shadow and silence. The spectral presence at Mission Dolores is not limited to sounds. Many visitors have claimed to see figures dressed in colonial attire wandering the mission grounds after dark. These apparitions are often described as semi-transparent, moving with deliberate purpose along the pathways, through gardens, or near the bell towers. Some appear to be engaged in rituals, perhaps reliving their roles as missionaries, settlers, or caretakers of the mission. Others are observed simply standing or walking silently, their faces vague but their intent unmistakably human. Encounters are typically fleeting, leaving witnesses with a sense of being watched and an unshakable impression that the past is very much present. The chapel itself is a focal point for paranormal activity. Beneath its floors lie the remains of countless individuals who were part of the mission's early history. And it is here that the energy seems most concentrated. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, while inside the sanctuary, an icy chill that can appear even on warm days. Footsteps echo along the wooden floors, moving with measured cadence, yet, when investigated, no one is found. Some parishioners have claimed to see shadowy forms kneeling at the altar or gliding along the aisles, their movements deliberate and solemn. At times, faint chanting can be heard, a liturgical echo that seems to emanate from the very walls themselves. These auditory phenomena are often accompanied by the smell of old incense, a fragrance that lingers mysteriously without any candles burning. Outside, in the mission's gardens and courtyards, the supernatural activity continues. Witnesses describe seeing shadowy figures moving along pathways lined with flowers and shrubs, or glimpsing faint lights hovering near the old adobe walls. Some have reported the sensation of invisible hands brushing past their shoulders, a cold touch that is fleeting but deeply unsettling. At night, the courtyard takes on an almost otherworldly quality, with long shadows stretching across the grounds and spectral figures appearing in the peripheral vision of those brave enough to wander after dark. Historical context helps explain why Mission Dolores is so deeply haunted. The mission was built during a period of colonization that brought both religious fervor and profound suffering. Native Americans were often forced into labor under harsh conditions. The deaths of both indigenous people and missionaries created a concentration of unresolved energy, which many believe manifests today as ghosts, whispers, and unexplained phenomena. Over the centuries, Mission Dolores has been a place of celebration, prayer, and community, but also of hardship, illness, and death. And it is this duality that gives the site its haunting presence. Several well-documented accounts add to the mission's reputation. A late-night visitor once reported walking through the chapel only to see a translucent figure kneeling at the altar. When approached, the apparition faded into the floorboards beneath, leaving no trace. Another witness described hearing footsteps descend the stone stairway outside the bell tower, only to find the steps empty upon inspection. Longtime caretakers have spoken of hearing faint chanting or witnessing fleeting shadows gliding across walls and corridors, especially near areas associated with burials or historic events. These experiences are so consistent that many believe the haunting of Mission Dolores is not the product of imagination but a genuine interaction with the lingering spirits of its past. Despite its haunted reputation, Mission Dolores remains a popular destination for visitors seeking history, architecture, and cultural insights. During the day, it offers an educational journey into the origins of San Francisco, highlighting the artistry, devotion, and traditions of the Spanish missionaries. By night, however, it transforms into a place where history and the supernatural intersect. Those who wander its grounds after sunset often leave with an eerie sense of connection to lives long gone, as though the mission itself is a conduit to the past. Mission Dolores stands as a testament to both the faith and suffering of those who shaped California's early history, from ghostly colonial figures wandering the grounds to whispered prayers, echoing through empty corridors and spectral footsteps over burial floors. The mission is alive with the presence of the past. For anyone who ventures here after dark, the experience is a haunting reminder that history does not fade, it lingers, watching, waiting, and sometimes moving among the living. St. Peter's Church, nestled in the heart of Los Angeles, is an architectural landmark dating back to the 19th century. Its Gothic spires, towering arches, and stained glass windows make it a striking presence by day. Yet beneath its serene exterior lies a history marred by tragedy and unexplained events. Over the decades, countless parishioners and visitors have reported eerie phenomena, that suggests the church is more than just a place of worship. It may be a site where the living and the supernatural intersect. Shadows that move against the walls, figures that appear and vanish without warning, and inexplicable sounds have cemented St. Peter's reputation as one of the most haunted churches in California. The church's history is steeped in both devotion and misfortune. Built during a period of rapid growth in Los Angeles, it became a hub for the local community, hosting weddings, baptisms, funerals, and midnight masses. Yet, alongside the celebrations, St. Peter's has been witness to tragedies, sudden deaths, illnesses that swept through the community, and accidents that claimed the lives of young and old alike. Some believe that these cumulative tragedies have left a lingering spiritual presence, a residual energy that permeates the church's walls and corridors. Visitors often describe an atmosphere thick with tension, as if the building itself remembers the sorrow it has witnessed over the centuries. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at St. Peter's is the presence of shadowy figures moving against the walls. Parishioners and visitors alike have recounted seeing dark silhouettes flit across the sanctuary during quiet moments, particularly during evening or late-night services. These shadows often appear at the edges of vision, vanishing when looked at directly. Some describe them as human-shaped, while others report more amorphous forms, shifting and stretching in ways that defy the logic of light and architecture. The movement of these shadows is subtle yet deliberate, giving the impression of figures pacing the aisles or standing vigil near the altar, unseen by most, but keenly felt by those present. During midnight masses, the church seems to take on a more pronounced supernatural character. Several witnesses have reported seeing figures standing near the altar, often shrouded in darkness, dressed in garments reminiscent of earlier centuries. These apparitions are described as motionless at first, observing the congregation or the priest, but when approached, they vanish without a trace. Some parishioners have claimed that these figures appear during moments of intense prayer or reflection, as if drawn to the spiritual energy in the room. The presence of such entities leaves many with a mix of awe and fear, a reminder that the line between the living and the spectral may be thinner than it seems. Auditory phenomena at St. Peter's add another layer to the haunting. Visitors frequently report hearing faint whispers, sometimes indistinct murmurs and other times clear words. Often during moments of silence or solitude, footsteps echoing in empty corridors, doors creaking without cause, and the distant tolling of bells are common experiences. Some parishioners have described hearing a soft, mournful chant that seems to weave through the church, growing louder and more distinct before fading abruptly. These sounds are often accompanied by an inexplicable chill, a coldness that washes over the sanctuary, leaving visitors with a heightened sense of awareness and unease. Even outside the main sanctuary, St. Peter's exhibits unusual activity. The church's cloisters, hallways, and small chapels are often described as feeling alive in a way that defies explanation. Long shadows stretch across the floors, objects occasionally shift, and the sense of being watched persists. Garden areas adjacent to the church, while serene by daylight, become uncanny at night. Witnesses have reported seeing figures among the trees or along the walkways, sometimes pausing to observe before vanishing into the darkness. Photographs taken in these areas occasionally reveal faint orbs of light or ghostly shapes not visible to the naked eye, reinforcing the church's reputation as a site of paranormal significance. Historical context provides insight into why St. Peter's might be haunted. The church has witnessed the lives and deaths of countless individuals over nearly 2 centuries. Accidents, disease, and untimely deaths created a concentration of emotional energy within the building. Some believe that this energy has manifested as the spectral figures, shadows, and unexplained sounds reported today. Over time, as more tragedies occurred, the residual presence may have compounded, leaving the church a nexus for supernatural activity. Stories of encounters add to the mystique. A caretaker once described hearing footsteps ascending the stairs to the bell tower, yet when he investigated, no one was there. Another visitor reported seeing a figure kneeling near the altar during a midnight mass, only for it to dissolve into the air as she approached. Longtime parishioners speak of fleeting glimpses of figures watching from the pews, standing silently at the edges of the sanctuary, or moving along hallways. These accounts, repeated over decades, have created a shared understanding that St. Peter's is not simply haunted by imagination, but may host a lingering presence of those who have passed. Despite its reputation, St. Peter's Church remains an active place of worship, drawing parishioners, tourists, and those curious about the supernatural. During the day, it is a place of reflection, community, and history. By night, however, the church transforms into a space where the past and the present converge, where shadows move with purpose and whispers echo from unseen corners. For those willing to linger after hours, St. Peter's offers not only architectural beauty and historical significance, but also a glimpse into a world where the spiritual and the spectral coexist. St. Peter's Church stands as a reminder that buildings, like people, carry memories both joyous and tragic. From shadowy figures pacing the sanctuary walls to ghostly presences at the altar during midnight masses, the church embodies the lingering echoes of centuries of life, death, and devotion. Those who enter after dark may leave with more than historical knowledge. They may carry the memory of unseen eyes watching, subtle movements in the corner of their vision, and the sense that some presences never truly depart. Old Mission San Fernando, situated in the heart of Los Angeles, is one of California's most storied religious sites. Founded in 1797, it has served as a spiritual center for over 2 centuries. Its adobe walls and bell towers standing as a testament to faith, history, and resilience. Yet beneath its serene architecture lies a history marked by sorrow and mystery. Over the years, visitors have reported a wide range of paranormal phenomena, from phantom monks wandering the cloisters to eerie chants echoing through empty corridors. These occurrences suggest that the mission, long a place of worship and community, may also be a conduit for spirits lingering from a bygone era. Many who visit Old Mission San Fernando speak of an immediate sense of stillness upon entering the grounds. The gardens, fountains, and courtyards, beautiful by daylight, take on a different character as shadows lengthen. A subtle, almost tangible energy seems to cling to the walls, as though the mission remembers every event, every life that has passed through its doors. Those who wander after sunset often describe a sudden feeling of being watched, a presence that is impossible to locate, but undeniably real. Some attribute this to the spirits of monks, missionaries, and Native Americans who lived and worked on the mission grounds centuries ago. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the appearance of phantom monks. Witnesses describe seeing figures clad in the traditional brown robes of Franciscan friars, moving silently along the cloisters, up stairways, or through the gardens. These figures are often partially transparent, gliding rather than walking, and vanish when approached directly. Some visitors report seeing monks kneeling in silent prayer at altars or along corridors where no living person is present. Others have experienced the sensation of footsteps echoing behind them while they explore, only to find that no one is there, leaving an eerie feeling of solitude mixed with observation. Auditory phenomena at the mission are equally compelling. Many visitors report hearing disembodied chants, soft and reverent, echoing through the stone corridors and chapels. The sounds often appear to emanate from empty spaces, growing louder and more distinct before fading abruptly. Some describe whispered prayers, voices speaking in languages no longer common, or murmurs of conversation between unseen individuals. These experiences are often accompanied by sudden drops in temperature, as though the air itself has been altered by unseen forces. Longtime caretakers and nighttime visitors alike have reported these chills, sometimes so pronounced that they can see their own breath in the air inside the mission's halls. Beyond the figures of monks, there are frequent reports of spectral Native Americans appearing in traditional dress. These apparitions are often seen in peripheral vision, watching silently from shadows near doorways, gardens, or along the mission's walls. Witnesses say that these figures rarely move aggressively. Instead, they observe, standing in quiet vigilance as though guarding the sacred grounds. Some believe these manifestations are the spirits of the Tongva people, whose lives were dramatically impacted by the mission system. The combination of colonial history and native displacement is thought to contribute to a concentration of spiritual energy, giving rise to these ghostly figures. The mission's chapel is a hotspot for paranormal activity. Visitors have reported hearing footsteps along the aisle or seeing shadows moving across the pews. During quiet moments, some have described a presence kneeling in prayer, only for it to vanish when directly observed. The ambient sounds of old bells or faintly played hymns have been reported, though no one is present to produce them. These encounters often evoke a mix of reverence and unease, making the chapel a place where history and the supernatural intermingle. Even the mission gardens and courtyards are not exempt from strange activity. Witnesses have described seeing faint shapes moving among the flowers and orange trees, sudden gusts of cold wind, or feeling a light touch on the shoulder as if someone has passed unseen. Some have photographed orbs or translucent shapes in the gardens, visible only on long exposure images, adding to the impression that the grounds are alive with spiritual energy. These manifestations often appear in areas associated with prayer, labor, or burial, suggesting that the energy may be tied to historical events on the mission grounds. Historical context provides further insight into these occurrences. Old Mission San Fernando was established during California's colonial period, a time of great upheaval for the local native populations. Disease, forced labor, and conflict claimed many lives, and the emotional intensity of these events is believed to have left residual energy that continues to manifest today. The construction and operation of the mission, though intended as a place of faith and community, was also a site of suffering and loss. This combination of devotion and tragedy may explain why visitors continue to encounter ghostly figures, sudden temperature drops, and unexplained sounds centuries later. Paranormal investigators frequently visit the mission, documenting phenomena that range from faint orbs of light to shadowy figures caught on camera. Longtime guides recount stories of visitors seeing monks gliding silently along cloisters, hearing chants in empty chapels, or glimpsing Native American figures watching from the shadows. Even those skeptical of the supernatural often admit that the mission has a weight, a presence that cannot easily be explained by history alone. Misión San Juan Bautista, located in the heart of San Benito County, stands as one of California's most iconic historical missions. Founded in 1797, its adobe walls, soaring bell tower, and expansive courtyards reflect centuries of devotion, culture, and Spanish colonial architecture. Yet beneath its picturesque appearance lies a history interwoven with hardship, tragedy, and mystery. Over the years, the mission has earned a reputation for paranormal activity, particularly around its old cemetery and the areas surrounding its bell tower. Visitors and locals alike speak of ghostly apparitions, disembodied cries, and an unsettling energy that seems to linger long after sunset. The mission's cemetery is widely considered the epicenter of supernatural occurrences. Countless early settlers, missionaries, and indigenous people were buried here, and many believe that their spirits have never fully departed. On foggy nights, visitors report seeing figures walking among the gravestones, shadowy silhouettes that vanish when approached. Some witnesses describe these apparitions as clearly human in form, dressed in clothing from the 18th and 19th centuries, moving with purpose along the paths between graves. Others have glimpsed fleeting images that appear blurred or simply transparent, as if the past itself has pressed momentarily into the present. The atmosphere in the cemetery is often described as heavy and oppressive, a palpable weight that causes an uneasy awareness in anyone who dares to linger too long. The bell tower, which rises prominently above the mission, is another focal point for strange phenomena. Many visitors have reported hearing disembodied bell chimes when no one is present to ring them. These tolls are sometimes rhythmic and deliberate, echoing across the mission grounds in a way that feels almost communicative, while other times they are random and startling, breaking the night's silence without warning. Alongside the chiming, some claim to hear cries of despair carried on the wind, faint at first but growing clearer as the fog thickens. These anguished sounds are often described as the voices of those who suffered or died within the mission's walls, replaying their final moments for anyone sensitive enough to hear. Beyond auditory phenomena, visual encounters are among the most compelling at Mission San Juan Bautista. Visitors have reported seeing former residents of the mission wandering the courtyards, disappearing into archways or along pathways where no living person should be. Some figures appear engaged in everyday activities from centuries past, walking with purpose, carrying objects, or conversing with others who are invisible to the living. Shadowy figures have been spotted near the mission's fountains, along the cloisters, and beneath the bell tower, creating an impression of a community frozen in time yet partially visible to those who visit after dark. These sightings often evoke a mixture of awe and fear, as if the past has reached forward to brush against the present. The mission's chapels and halls are not immune to strange occurrences. Some visitors report sudden drops in temperature, icy drafts that move through the rooms even when windows and doors are closed. Others have felt the sensation of unseen hands brushing past them, leaving a fleeting but unmistakable impression. Faint whispers, murmured prayers, or indistinct conversations are common, often occurring during moments of quiet reflection or solitude. The combination of visual and auditory phenomena creates an atmosphere thick with the presence of those who came before, reinforcing the idea that the mission is more than a historical site. It is a nexus of lingering spiritual energy. Several well-documented encounters have added to Mission San Juan Bautista's reputation for haunting. A nighttime visitor once reported watching a figure in colonial attire walking through the cemetery, only for it to vanish as they tried to follow. Another witness described hearing the bell toll repeatedly, despite the tower remaining empty, followed by a distant, heart-wrenching cry that seemed to echo from the graves themselves. Historical context sheds light on why these supernatural events might occur. The mission was established to convert and educate the indigenous population. Disease, conflict, and the struggles of daily survival claimed many lives, leaving behind residual energy that some believe remains to this day. The old cemetery, containing the remains of individuals who experienced suffering, devotion, and tragedy, is naturally the center of this activity. The combination of grief, historical importance, and spiritual energy creates conditions that many paranormal researchers consider ideal for haunting phenomena. Even in the daytime, visitors occasionally report a sense of the past pressing against the present. Courtyards and corridors feel charged with unseen energy, and some have sensed fleeting shadows moving at the edges of vision. Longtime caretakers speak of subtle, persistent occurrences, footsteps in empty hallways, whispers that seem to come from nowhere, and the occasional flickering of lights that have no mechanical explanation. These experiences contribute to the mission's mystique, making it a compelling destination not only for history enthusiasts, but also for those drawn to the unexplained. Mission San Juan Bautista remains a living piece of California's history, blending architectural beauty, cultural significance, and the weight of centuries of human experience. By day, it offers visitors a chance to explore colonial life, religious devotion, and local heritage. By night, however, it becomes a realm where history, memory, and the supernatural converge. The cemetery, the bell tower, and the shadowed courtyards offer a haunting glimpse into lives long past. A reminder that some spirits linger, their presence still woven into the fabric of the mission. For anyone willing to explore after dark, Mission San Juan Bautista provides not just a journey through history, but an encounter with the unseen forces that continue to inhabit this sacred and storied ground. Mission San Carlos Borromeo, commonly known as the Carmel Mission, stands as one of California's most beautiful and historically significant religious sites. Founded in 1770 by Father Serra, its adobe walls, red-tiled roofs, and ornate chapels have withstood centuries of weather, human activity, and history. Yet beneath its serene and picturesque exterior lies a darker legacy, one woven with tragedy, loss, and unexplained phenomena. Over the years, countless visitors and locals have reported paranormal experiences, ghostly figures wandering the cloisters, strange lights flickering across the grounds, and eerie chanting that seems to echo through empty corridors. The Carmel mission, while a place of worship and history, has become a nexus for the supernatural. The mission's historical context helps explain why it is such a hotspot for paranormal activity. During the Spanish colonization of California, the mission was a place of both spiritual guidance and human suffering. Native Americans were often forced into labor, enduring harsh conditions while disease and malnutrition claimed many lives. Missionaries themselves also faced hardships, and several died on the grounds or nearby, leaving behind lingering energy. The Carmel mission became a witness to countless funerals, prayers, and personal tragedies, concentrating the spiritual imprint of life and death into the mission's walls and surrounding grounds. Many believe this dense emotional history manifests today as ghostly presences and unexplained phenomena. Visitors frequently report seeing figures moving through the mission after sunset. These apparitions often resemble friars dressed in traditional 18th-century robes, moving slowly and deliberately through cloisters, chapels, and gardens. Some are seen kneeling in silent prayer, while others appear to wander aimlessly, as if replaying their daily routines from centuries ago. Witnesses sometimes describe these figures as partially transparent, fading away when approached directly. The movements of these spirits are subtle yet deliberate, giving the impression that the Carmel mission is a place where the living and the spectral coexist. Eerie lights are another common phenomenon at the Carmel mission. Numerous visitors report seeing flickering orbs along the pathways, hovering above courtyards, or appearing near the mission's bell tower. Some lights are described as warm and golden, while others emit a cold, bluish glow. These apparitions often appear suddenly and vanish without warning, and no natural source has ever been identified, lending visual weight to the experiences reported by those brave enough to explore the grounds at night. Auditory phenomena further contribute to the mission's haunted reputation. Visitors have reported hearing faint chanting echoing through empty corridors, sometimes in Latin and other times in a language difficult to identify. These voices are often described as distant yet clear, rising and falling in volume as if the singers are moving through the mission. Some witnesses also report hearing footsteps on stone floors, doors creaking open or closed, and the soft rustle of robes where no one is present. The combination of sound, shadow, and sight creates an atmosphere of both reverence and unease, reminding visitors that the Carmel mission is alive with the echoes of its past. The mission's cemetery and surrounding grounds are particularly active. Here, the spirits of those who lived, worked, and died on the mission are said to linger. Apparitions have been reported wandering among the graves, often appearing on foggy or moonlit nights. Witnesses describe these figures as silent and solemn, moving slowly along pathways or pausing near tombstones. Some report hearing disembodied cries or murmurs carrying through the night air, while others sense an invisible presence following them as they walk among the graves. These experiences are often accompanied by sudden chills or a feeling of being watched, reinforcing the idea that the Carmel mission is a site where history and the supernatural intersect. The bell tower, which dominates the mission's skyline, has its own reputation for unexplained activity. Some visitors have reported hearing phantom bells ringing, even when no one is present to sound them. Others have claimed to see shadowy forms near the top of the tower, sometimes moving across the balcony or peering down at the courtyards below. On several occasions, these sightings coincide with the appearance of lights or chanting, suggesting that certain locations within the mission are particularly charged with spiritual energy. Many paranormal investigators and historians have explored the Carmel mission, documenting experiences that range from subtle whispers to striking apparitions. Longtime staff members have recounted seeing monks walking silently along corridors, witnessing strange lights above the cloisters, and hearing chanting in the dead of night. These reports, consistent across decades, have helped cement the mission's status as one of California's most haunted religious sites. Even skeptics often admit that there is an undeniable presence at the Carmel mission, an energy that lingers long after visitors have left. Despite its haunted reputation, the Carmel mission remains an active center of faith, history, and culture. During the day, it draws tourists, historians, and parishioners eager to explore its architecture, learn about early California history, and experience its spiritual heritage. By night, however, the mission transforms into a place where the past seems to walk among the living, where ghostly figures, strange lights, and mysterious chants are not merely stories but ongoing experiences. Visitors who explore after dark often leave with a deep sense of connection to the past, a haunting reminder that the Carmel mission is both a place of history and a realm where the unseen continues to exist. Mission Santa Barbara, often called the Queen of the Missions, is a striking example of Spanish colonial architecture and spiritual heritage. Founded in 1786, it has served as a center of faith, education, and community for over 2 centuries. Its whitewashed walls, red-tiled roofs, and bell towers make it a serene and picturesque landmark. Yet behind its beauty lies a history intertwined with mystery, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena. Over the years, Mission Santa Barbara has developed a reputation as one of California's most haunted religious sites, with reports ranging from shadowy figures moving through corridors to sudden, chilling drops in temperature and the unexplained ringing of church bells. Many visitors report an immediate sense of unease when entering the mission after dark. The hallways and corridors, lined with centuries-old artwork and relics, carry a weight that seems to extend beyond the physical. Some describe a feeling of being observed, a subtle awareness that unseen eyes follow their movements. This sensation is often strongest in the older sections of the mission, where the original adobe walls and wooden beams seem to hold centuries of memories, both sacred and sorrowful. The history of the mission, which includes deaths, disease, and hardship during its early years, is believed by some to contribute to the lingering spiritual energy. One of the most common reports involves sudden drops in temperature, often experienced in hallways, chapels, and cloisters. Visitors describe stepping into a warm, calm area of the mission, only to feel a freezing chill descend without warning. These temperature fluctuations are sometimes accompanied by an eerie stillness, as if the air itself has been thickened by invisible forces. Those familiar with paranormal phenomena often interpret these chills as signs of a presence, an energy that has remained tied to the mission through decades of human activity and loss. The hallways and corridors of Mission Santa Barbara are also the setting for numerous visual encounters. Shadowy figures are frequently reported moving along the walls or disappearing around corners. Some witnesses describe figures resembling priests or friars in historical attire, walking deliberately or kneeling in prayer. These apparitions are usually fleeting, vanishing when approached, yet they leave a lasting impression on those who see them. Occasionally, visitors claim to glimpse figures of women in long dresses or Native Americans in traditional dress, appearing silently in the periphery before dissolving into the shadows. The effect is both haunting and solemn, a reminder of the mission's layered history and the people whose lives were intimately connected to it. Another frequently reported phenomenon is the mysterious ringing of the church bells. Numerous visitors have described hearing the deep, resonant tolls echoing across the mission grounds when no one is present to ring them. Sometimes the sound is rhythmic, as if signaling a ceremony or a moment of mourning. Other times, it is sudden and startling, breaking the quiet of night with a tone that seems almost mournful. These bell tolls often coincide with other supernatural experiences, such as fleeting shadows, whispers, or chills, reinforcing the impression that the mission is alive with unseen presences. Auditory phenomena extend beyond bell chimes. Visitors report hearing distant footsteps along stone corridors, faint murmurs of conversation, and even whispered prayers that seem to originate from nowhere. Some have described hearing chanting in Latin, soft and reverent, emanating from empty chapels. These sounds are often intermittent, fading as mysteriously as they appear, leaving witnesses questioning whether they have heard anything at all. The combination of sound, shadow, and environmental shifts creates a layered experience, making it difficult to separate historical resonance from the paranormal. The mission's courtyards and gardens, while serene during daylight, take on a different character at night. Apparitions have been reported moving quietly along walkways, pausing near fountains, or standing silently near statues. Some witnesses claim to feel a subtle touch, a brush of air, or a fleeting presence that cannot be explained by natural causes. Photographs taken at night occasionally reveal orbs or shadowy forms, providing further evidence of the mission's haunting reputation. These experiences suggest that Mission Santa Barbara is not merely a historical site, but also a space where the past continues to interact with the present. Historical context sheds light on why Mission Santa Barbara might be so prone to paranormal activity. The mission was the site of immense hardship for the indigenous Chumash people, who were forced into labor and exposed to foreign diseases during the Spanish colonial period. Many died on the mission grounds, their final moments steeped in suffering and grief. Over time, these emotional imprints are thought to have manifested as ghostly figures, sudden chills, and other supernatural occurrences. Additionally, the mission itself has witnessed numerous tragedies, accidents, and unexplained deaths over the centuries, contributing to the cumulative spiritual energy that visitors continue to experience. Paranormal researchers and longtime caretakers have documented countless encounters at Mission Santa Barbara. Nighttime explorations frequently record cold spots, unusual sounds, and shadowy figures. Long-term staff report subtle but persistent phenomena. Doors that close on their own, faint whispers along empty hallways, and glimpses of figures moving in spaces that should be vacant. Even skeptics often acknowledge that the mission has an atmosphere unlike any other, one that seems to carry the weight of history and the presence of the unseen. Mission Santa Barbara remains a living testament to California's religious and cultural heritage. During the day, it serves as a place of worship, education, and historical preservation. By night, it transforms into a realm where history and the supernatural merge, where shadowy figures walk corridors, mysterious chills descend without explanation, and the sound of unseen bells resonates across the mission grounds. For those who venture after dark, the mission offers not only a journey into California's colonial past, but also a haunting encounter with the lingering spirits of those who lived, worked, and died within its walls. St. Ignatius Church in San Francisco, built in the late 1800s, is one of the city's most striking architectural and spiritual landmarks. Its soaring ceilings, ornate woodwork, and intricate stained glass windows attract visitors from around the world, drawing them to marvel at its beauty and historical significance. Yet beyond its grandeur and peaceful facade lies a darker, more mysterious presence. Over the years, countless witnesses have reported paranormal activity within the church's vast halls. Ghostly shadows flit along corridors, unexplained cold spots appear without warning, and the sound of footsteps echoes through empty rooms, giving the impression that St. Ignatius is not only a house of worship, but also a place where the past continues to linger in ways both unsettling and unexplainable. The interior of St. Ignatius is a frequent setting for these supernatural encounters. Visitors often speak of shadowy figures moving through the aisles, along the side chapels, and near the altar. These apparitions are typically human-shaped but indistinct, sometimes appearing fully formed, and at other times as fleeting silhouettes. Witnesses report that these figures seem to vanish when approached, as if retreating from the physical world. Yet their presence leaves a lingering impression of intent and awareness. Some claim the shadows resemble clergy from bygone eras, moving in patterns reminiscent of ritual or prayer, suggesting that the echoes of long-past religious ceremonies still play out within the church's sacred spaces. Cold spots are another common phenomenon at St. Ignatius, often appearing suddenly and without explanation. A room that moments before felt warm and inviting can instantly turn icy, causing visitors to shiver and feel a tangible sense of unease. These sudden temperature drops are frequently accompanied by other strange occurrences, such as lights flickering, doors moving slightly on their own, or faint murmurs that seem to emanate from nowhere. Some witnesses have described standing near the pews or altars and feeling an oppressive weight in the air, as though unseen eyes are watching, studying their every movement. Auditory experiences are particularly eerie within the church. The vast halls and high ceilings often amplify even the faintest sounds, but many have reported hearing footsteps when the church is empty, as though someone or something is pacing along the aisles. Others hear whispers, hushed conversations, or the distant echo of prayers that seem to belong to another time. These sounds often coincide with the visual phenomena, creating a deeply immersive and unsettling experience. In some cases, visitors have recounted the sensation of a presence walking alongside them, a subtle brushing or movement that cannot be explained by air currents or human proximity. The stained glass windows, while beautiful during the day, cast an almost spectral light after sunset. Shadows bend and stretch across the stone floors, creating shapes that sometimes resemble human figures or forms in motion. Some visitors claim that when the sunlight fades and the church is quiet, they can see faces or figures in the colored glass itself, watching silently from above. The interplay of light and shadow contributes to the sensation that the church is alive in a way beyond its physical construction, as if the very architecture has absorbed the energy of centuries of devotion, ritual, and human experience. Historical events may help explain the paranormal activity at St. Ignatius. Since its founding in the late 19th century, the church has been a center of worship, education, and community life, witnessing countless ceremonies, baptisms, marriages, and funerals. Like many historic religious sites, it has also been a place of sorrow, struggle, and death. Priests, parishioners, and visitors who spent their lives within these walls may have left behind an energetic imprint, manifesting today as shadows, sounds, and sudden coldness. The long history of human devotion and emotional intensity contributes to a lingering atmosphere, where past and present seem to overlap. Staff and longtime caretakers of the church have also shared their experiences. Some have noticed shadowy figures passing behind them in empty corridors, heard the unmistakable echo of footsteps when no one else is present, or felt inexplicable drops in temperature in the sacristy or near the altar, adding visual evidence to the growing body of accounts from witnesses who have explored the church after hours. These consistent reports have reinforced St. Ignatius's reputation as a site where the spiritual and the supernatural intersect. Despite these unsettling experiences, St. Ignatius Church remains a vibrant center of faith and community. By day, visitors come to admire its history, architecture, and religious significance, often leaving with a sense of reverence and awe. By night, however, the church transforms into a space where the echoes of the past seem palpable, where shadows move silently, cold spots appear without explanation, and footsteps can be heard on empty floors. For those brave enough to explore after dark, St. Ignatius offers not only a connection to San Francisco's rich religious history, but also a chilling encounter with the lingering spirits who continue to inhabit this historic, sacred space. Mission San Buenaventura, located in Ventura, California, holds within its adobe walls and shadowed cloisters centuries of history marked by both devotion and tragedy. Founded in 1782 by Father Serra, it was intended as a place of faith and sanctuary. But the land remembers everything that has transpired there. The mission, nestled along the Pacific coast, was once a thriving center for agriculture, worship, and education. Yet beneath its polished beauty lies a haunting past filled with death, disease, and whispered stories of spirits who refuse to rest. From the moment one steps onto the mission grounds, a subtle unease clings to the air. The courtyards may look serene in daylight, with roses blooming against whitewashed walls and the steady tolling of the bells. But as evening falls, the atmosphere changes. Shadows gather in corners, and the silence of the cloister seems to grow heavy, pressing in on anyone who dares to wander too far after dark. The mission has long been associated with ghostly sightings, most notably that of a friar said to walk the cloisters at night. Witnesses describe him as a tall figure in a brown robe, his hood often drawn low so that his face is hidden. He drifts silently through the passageways, sometimes pausing near the chapel doors as though standing watch. Some believe he is the spirit of one of the Franciscan missionaries, perhaps bound to the mission by duty or devotion. Others think his presence is more tragic, a soul caught between the earthly realm and the afterlife, unable to move on from the burdens of the past. Alongside this spectral friar, strange phenomena plague the mission. Visitors report cold spots in areas where no breeze could possibly reach. Lights flicker without explanation, even in rooms where electricity has long been disconnected. In the dead of night, footsteps echo in the halls, sometimes soft and deliberate, sometimes hurried and panicked. When investigated, there is never anyone there. These sounds often lead back to the cloister, the very heart of the haunting, where some say the air grows thick, as though filled with unspoken sorrow. The mission's history provides chilling context for these ghostly accounts. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, outbreaks of disease devastated the local Chumash people, many of whom had been brought to the mission to live and work. Entire families were wiped out in waves of illness, and mass graves were dug to contain the dead. The trauma of that era is believed by some to linger, a wound that never fully healed. The walls of San Buenaventura may stand strong, but the suffering that took place within them left an imprint impossible to erase. Some paranormal investigators claim that the strange activity intensifies around anniversaries of significant events, such as the mission's founding or the feast days of saints. On such nights, witnesses have reported seeing glowing shapes moving near the chapel, as though the air itself carried flickers of spirit light. A few even say they have heard chanting, low and rhythmic, carried faintly on the breeze. Though no services were being conducted, the voices are often described as speaking in a language difficult to identify, sometimes Latin, sometimes something older, perhaps a blend of Spanish and native tongues. Local lore adds another chilling layer to the story. Generations of Ventura residents have whispered about encounters with the ghostly friar. Some claim he appears to travelers walking near the mission late at night, startling them before vanishing into thin air. Others tell of caretakers locking up the chapel only to return minutes later and find candles mysteriously lit on the altar. In each case, the friar is thought to be the cause, whether as a guardian of the sacred space or as a restless entity caught in repetition of past duties. But not all the stories paint him as a benevolent figure. There are darker accounts of visitors feeling overwhelming dread when they sense his presence. A handful of people have described being frozen in place by an invisible weight, as though the air itself pressed down on them. In these moments, the friar is said to appear at the far end of the hall, motionless, watching, before dissolving into shadow. The witnesses often leave shaken, convinced that the mission holds secrets too heavy for the living to bear. Despite its reputation, Mission San Buenaventura remains a functioning parish, drawing worshippers and tourists alike. Many come for the history and architecture, admiring the red-tiled roofs and quiet gardens. Yet those who stay late or return after hours sometimes leave with stories of their own. Even priests have quietly acknowledged that strange things occur, though few are willing to speak openly about the hauntings. The mission stands as both a monument and a mystery. By day, it is a place of peace, its bells calling the faithful to prayer, its walls echoing with the footsteps of visitors exploring California's history. By night, however, it becomes something else, entirely a realm, where the boundary between the living and the dead seems thin. The ghostly friar in the cloister is but one reminder that the past is never truly gone. The land remembers, and the spirits of San Buenaventura still walk among us, bound to the mission's legacy of faith, loss, and unending watchfulness. Even now, when the bells ring out against the coastal night, some swear they hear more than just the metal striking the air. They hear whispers, prayers spoken by voices long departed, carried on the wind through the cloister, where shadows stretch and unseen eyes linger. For those who believe, Mission San Buenaventura is more than a piece of history. It is a place where the past still breathes, and where the spirits of the faithful and the forgotten continue their eternal vigil. St. Mary's Church in Los Angeles is one of those sacred spaces where the passage of time seems to blur, leaving behind more than just architectural grandeur. Its walls, worn with age, have witnessed generations of prayer, confession, and ritual. Yet many locals insist that what lingers there is not simply memory or tradition, it is something far less tangible, something unsettling. Strange encounters in the church have made it a focal point of whispered stories, tales of spirits unwilling to leave, and voices from the past that seem to echo through the stillness. The church itself is beautiful, with high arches, stained glass that captures the sun in fractured bursts of color, and pews polished by decades of worshippers. At night, however, when the lights are dimmed and the heavy wooden doors creak shut, the beauty gives way to a weighty silence. That silence is often broken by sounds that should not exist: muffled footsteps pacing the nave, the low hum of whispered prayers, and sometimes even the sharp crack of a pew creaking as if an unseen figure had sat down. Witnesses often describe the sensation of not being alone, even when they know they are. One of the most chilling reports comes from parishioners who stay late after evening services. They describe seeing figures kneeling in the pews, heads bowed, hands clasped in silent devotion. At first, such a sight might not seem unusual until they realized that the church had already been emptied, and no one was supposed to be there. These figures are not clear and solid like the living, as though caught between form and mist. Some claim the figures wear outdated clothing, like veils and dark coats reminiscent of past generations, their shapes dissolving if approached. Others vanish completely when a person blinks or shifts their gaze. The whispers of confession are another strange occurrence tied to St. Mary's. Priests who have served their tale of hearing faint voices inside the confessional booths, even when the church was closed. The murmurs are too indistinct to make out words, but the tone suggests pleading, remorse, or prayer. A few clergy members have claimed that, when they opened the booth to check for intruders, it was empty. One priest, shaken after years of service, once remarked that he believed the dead were still confessing sins that had haunted them in life, trapped in a cycle of penance. Whether these were spirits seeking forgiveness or echoes of long-forgotten rituals, no one could say for sure. The church also carries with it a history of grief. Fires, illnesses, and tragedies among its congregation have marked its past. During the early 20th century, when Los Angeles was rapidly growing, St. Mary's often became a gathering place for those mourning loved ones lost to epidemics and violence. Some believe that the intensity of emotion poured into those walls, the prayers of sorrow, the cries of loss, the desperate pleas for mercy left an imprint so strong that it refuses to fade. The energy of countless mourners may still vibrate within the structure, manifesting as shadows and voices. Paranormal investigators who have visited the church describe feeling inexplicable cold spots that drift through the aisles, even on warm Los Angeles nights. Equipment has picked up strange fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, and digital recordings have captured faint voices when no one was present. Some of these voices, when played back, seem to whisper names or fragments of prayer, their origins impossible to trace. Skeptics argue that the church's age and acoustics could be responsible for echoes and creaks. But those who have stood in the church during such moments speak of something far more intimate, an undeniable presence that presses against the living. Locals who pass by St. Mary's at night sometimes see lights flicker in the stained glass windows, though the church is locked and dark inside. A few even claim to have seen a shadow pacing slowly near the altar, as if guarding it, or perhaps unwilling to leave it behind. Some parishioners believe this could be the spirit of a devoted priest from long ago, one who remains bound to his duties even in death. Others say the shadows are collective, born of the many souls who once sought comfort within those walls and who cannot bring themselves to depart. There is a peculiar heaviness in the air around St. Mary's, especially after dark. Those who walk past the church often report a sensation of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow them from within. The feeling is not always hostile, but undeniably unnerving, an atmosphere thick with presence. Some describe it as sorrowful, others as protective, but nearly everyone agrees that it feels alive in some way. The church breathes with the energy of countless souls who once knelt in devotion, and now remain tied to the place where they sought solace. St. Mary's Church, like many old houses of worship, is more than stone and stained glass. It is a vessel that has absorbed the hopes, fears, grief, and faith of those who have passed through its doors for more than a century. Perhaps it is inevitable that such a vessel would hold echoes of the past, refusing to let go of the voices that once filled its halls. Whether these figures are spirits still seeking redemption, or simply imprints of lives long gone, they remind the living that some places carry more than history. They carry the weight of the souls who built them, prayed in them, and never truly left. Mission Santa Clara in Santa Clara, California, holds both historical reverence and an unsettling reputation for the unexplained. Established in 1777, it stands as one of the original Spanish missions, a symbol of faith and endurance, but also a reminder of struggle, tragedy, and loss. The grounds have seen fires, earthquakes, and countless human hardships. It is this heavy past, some believe, that lingers and manifests in strange, chilling ways. Visitors who walk its corridors at night often describe a sensation that is difficult to explain. The feeling of being observed, as if unseen eyes are fixed on them from every shadow. Paranormal investigators have long been fascinated with Mission Santa Clara, reporting activity that cannot be dismissed as coincidence. Shadow figures are one of the most frequently mentioned phenomena. These are not fleeting glimpses, easily dismissed by imagination, but dark forms that move with intent. Some are seen standing silently in corners of the chapel, while others drift along the hallways before vanishing into the walls themselves. Their outlines are vaguely human, yet too obscure to identify. Investigators often describe the sensation that these entities are aware of them, responding almost consciously to their movements. One of the eeriest aspects of the mission is the soundscape that emerges after nightfall. Strange whispers are heard echoing across the empty grounds. These murmurs are not carried by the wind or caused by outside noises. They rise and fade inside the chapel itself, often in clusters of overlapping voices, as though a conversation is taking place just beyond comprehension. At times, single words are distinct, though they seem to be spoken in languages unfamiliar to modern ears. Some believe these are remnants of prayers, confessions, or chants from the mission's early days, trapped in the stones and replaying themselves through time. Many visitors have experienced sudden and inexplicable cold spots within the mission, particularly in the sanctuary. The temperature drop is so extreme that it feels as though the air is being drained of warmth in an instant. Investigators equipped with thermal imaging devices have confirmed sharp fluctuations, often coinciding with the appearance of shadowy figures or the disembodied whispers. To those sensitive to atmosphere, the chapel carries a suffocating heaviness, as though the building itself resists the presence of the living. The mission's history adds weight to these accounts. It was rebuilt multiple times after natural disasters, including devastating fires. Lives were lost in these calamities, and local tradition holds that the spirits of those who perished remain bound to the mission. The indigenous peoples, who were forced into labor under harsh conditions, left behind their own pain and sorrow, which many believe imprinted itself on the site. Such layers of grief and devotion combine into a spiritual residue that cannot be easily dismissed. One story, often retold, involves a priest who served at the mission in the 1800s. He was said to be a man deeply devoted to his parishioners, known for long hours of prayer within the chapel. After his passing, people began reporting sightings of a robed figure kneeling before the altar. Even when the church was locked and empty, parishioners claimed the air would grow unnaturally still, followed by the faint sound of Latin prayers. When they looked closer, the figure would vanish. Paranormal investigators have captured audio recordings of what seemed to be prayers in a low male voice. though no one was present at the time of recording. Another chilling report involves the bell tower. Some visitors have seen movement there when no one is inside. A dark silhouette has been observed pacing along the narrow window, as though watching over the courtyard below. On several occasions, the bells themselves were heard ringing, though records show they had not been struck. Witnesses describe the sound as soft, almost muffled, echoing faintly like a memory, rather than a present event. The Mission Cemetery also plays a role in its haunted reputation. Shadows are said to linger among the gravestones, particularly around dusk. Some visitors claim to see faint lights hovering over the ground, resembling candles or lanterns. Investigators suggest these could be residual hauntings tied to the many who found their final rest there. Even in daylight, the mission carries an atmosphere of quiet intensity. Students from the nearby university often report unsettling experiences while passing through the grounds. Some describe hearing footsteps behind them, only to turn and find no one there. Others report seeing fleeting images at the edges of their vision robes, brushing against stone, or faces that disappear when looked at directly. Mission Santa Clara remains both a place of worship and a site of mystery. Its walls have absorbed centuries of devotion, tragedy, and unexplainable events. For those who walk its halls after dark, the air seems charged with something unseen, yet undeniably present. The shadow figures, the whispers, the cold spots, and the lingering sense of watchful eyes all suggest that the past has not fully left this sacred space. Instead, it lingers, shaping the mission into more than a historic site. It is a place where time folds in on itself, and where the line between the living and the departed grows thin. Mission San Rafael, in San Rafael, California, may appear today as a peaceful site of reflection. But beneath its serene exterior lies a history steeped in tragedy and whispers of the supernatural. Founded in 1817, this mission was unlike many of the others along California's El Camino Real. It was not established solely as a religious center, but rather as a sanitarium, a place of healing for Native Americans who had fallen ill in the crowded and disease-ridden Mission San Francisco de Asís, also known as Mission Dolores. What was intended to be a sanctuary instead became a site marked by suffering, loss, and ghostly echoes that persist to this day. The history of San Rafael is inseparable from the epidemics that ravaged California's Native American communities during the Mission era. Measles, influenza, and other European illnesses spread rapidly, decimating populations who had little immunity to these foreign diseases. The mission was intended to provide a place where the sick could recover in a milder climate, away from the damp conditions of San Francisco. Yet the outcome was far from ideal. The mission's small facilities soon became overcrowded, and the death toll climbed higher with each passing season. For countless Native families, San Rafael was not a refuge of healing, but a final resting place. It is this sorrowful past that many believe fuels the paranormal phenomena reported on the grounds. Visitors, particularly those who linger into the night, speak of faint coughing drifting through the air, as though the sick still struggle for breath long after their time. Others claim to hear the sound of soft weeping, an unsettling echo that seems to emanate from the walls themselves. On nights when the mission is particularly quiet, some have even reported the unmistakable cries of children, chilling in their clarity, yet impossible to trace to any living source. The ghostly figures of former patients are also said to roam the mission grounds. Paranormal investigators have described seeing pale shapes move across the courtyard, sometimes disappearing into the old structures, only to fade away when approached. One recurring vision is that of a young woman dressed in plain, homespun clothing, her face obscured by shadows, who drifts slowly along the periphery of the mission before vanishing into the night. Some believe she may be the spirit of a native caretaker, forever tending to those who suffered here. The mission's chapel, rebuilt after the original structure fell into disrepair, is also said to carry an unshakable heaviness. During evening vigils, parishioners have spoken of sudden cold spots that pass through the pews, a sharp contrast to the otherwise temperate climate. Others have heard faint whispers during prayers, voices speaking in languages they cannot understand. Some speculate these are remnants of old Latin liturgies, once recited by priests, while others are convinced they are the voices of native inhabitants who once prayed here in their own tongue. The bell tower, too, has its share of chilling tales. On more than one occasion, late-night passers-by have reported the sound of the mission bell ringing, even when the tower has stood empty and still. The sound is described as soft, distant, almost mournful, as though marking not the hour, but the memory of lives lost. Local lore suggests that the bell tolls for the departed, recalling the countless burials that took place during the mission's years as a sanitarium. Paranormal investigators who have spent time at San Rafael often describe the site as deceptively quiet during the day, but deeply unsettling after sundown. EMF meters spike without explanation in empty hallways. Digital recorders capture strange, disembodied voices, and thermal cameras pick up fleeting shapes moving through the darkness. Some groups have left early, unable to shake the oppressive sensation of being watched, as though unseen eyes followed their every move across the grounds. Perhaps the most unsettling accounts come from those who have stayed near the mission overnight. Guests at nearby lodgings have reported waking to the sound of coughing outside their windows, only to find the streets empty. Others have described vivid dreams of 6BDs, crowded dormitories, and faces they did not recognize staring back at them, only to wake with the feeling that they had brushed against the past in some ghostly, intangible way. Though the mission has been rebuilt and restored to its present form, the weight of its history lingers in the air. For the descendants of the native communities who once suffered there, San Rafael is a reminder of loss, resilience, and the costs of colonization. For those drawn to the paranormal, it remains one of California's most intriguing sites of restless spirits. Whether the voices, shadows, and ghostly figures are genuine echoes of the past or simply the result of imagination fueled by history. One thing is certain: the mission holds a presence that is difficult to ignore. It is as though the sorrow of the sick and dying has seeped into its very foundation, leaving an indelible imprint that time cannot erase. Standing within the courtyard at night, with the cool air heavy and still, it is easy to understand why so many leave with a sense of unease. The faint cough in the distance, the shadow that moves just beyond the eye, the feeling of being observed by unseen presences all remind visitors that San Rafael is not simply a relic of history, but a place where the past and present blur in haunting ways. The mission, once a site of healing and hope, is now remembered as a place where sorrow lingers, carried on whispers and footsteps that refuse to fade. St. John's Church in Sacramento stands as a solemn reminder of California's religious history, but it is also a place shrouded in mystery and whispered legends. The church, with its Gothic-style architecture and tall spire that pierces the skyline, has long been a landmark for the faithful. Yet, beneath the quiet reverence of prayer and hymn, stories of strange and unsettling occurrences have persisted. Visitors and locals alike speak of ghostly priests, unexplained sounds, and a lingering sense that the sacred halls are home to more than just memories of worship. The earliest accounts of hauntings at St. John's Church can be traced back to the late 19th century. Parishioners attending late evening services often reported seeing a priest walking through the dimly lit chapel after the congregation had dispersed. These sightings seemed unremarkable at first, until people realized that no priest had remained behind after the service. Witnesses claimed the figure was dressed in the traditional cassock of an earlier era, moving with solemn purpose toward the altar before vanishing without a trace. Some believed he was a former clergyman who had devoted his life to the church, unable to leave even in death. Others whispered of a priest who died tragically under mysterious circumstances, forever bound to the site. The eerie stories do not end with the spectral priest. In the quiet hours of the night, long after the last candle has been extinguished, footsteps echo through the church's hallways. Maintenance workers and night watchmen have reported hearing heavy boots striking against the polished wooden floors, pacing slowly up and down the corridors. At times, the footsteps seem to stop abruptly, leaving the listener in tense silence. On other occasions, The sounds continue, circling the building as though someone is deliberately keeping watch over it. Efforts to follow the noise often lead to empty rooms or dead ends, reinforcing the belief that these are no ordinary intruders. Adding to the unsettling atmosphere are the reports of lights flickering inexplicably within the church. Chandeliers sway as though moved by unseen hands, and electric lights dim and brighten in erratic patterns. Parishioners attending evening masses have sworn that candles at the altar will flare to life without being lit, casting strange shadows that dance across the walls. On stormy nights, the phenomenon intensifies, with glowing orbs of light appearing near the rafters or hovering briefly in the aisles before vanishing into the dark. Electrical inspections over the years have revealed no faults in the wiring, leaving the church's mysterious illuminations without explanation. One of the most chilling accounts comes from the small chapel connected to the main hall. Several witnesses have claimed to see a group of priests gathered in the dim light, their heads bowed in silent ritual. From a distance, the figures appear solid and tangible, their lips moving as if in prayer. Yet as onlookers approach, the scene dissolves into thin air, leaving only the stillness of an empty room. Paranormal investigators who have visited the chapel describe sudden drops in temperature, as though the air itself is heavy with unseen presence. Some have recorded faint whispers on audio devices, in Latin phrases no longer used in modern services. Sacramento locals often say that the haunting of St. John's reflects the weight of its past. Like many old churches, its history is layered with joy, sorrow, and devotion. Over the decades, countless weddings, funerals, and confessions have been held within its walls. It is believed that the emotional intensity of these moments may have left an imprint, a kind of spiritual residue that lingers long after the participants have passed away. In this sense, the spectral priests may not be bound by tragedy alone, but by an enduring sense of duty to their faith and their parishioners. Visitors today who step into St. John's Church often describe an immediate sense of awe, mixed with unease. The air inside feels cool and heavy, carrying with it the faint scent of incense, long burned away. The vast interior amplifies every creak and sigh of the old structure, turning ordinary sounds into ghostly echoes. Shadows cling stubbornly to corners even in daylight, and at night, the silence is broken only by the occasional rustle of unseen movement. Some believe the hauntings are benevolent, a sign that the spirits of devoted priests continue to safeguard the church. Others interpret the phenomena as restless energy, tied to unresolved mysteries hidden within the church's history. Whatever the truth may be, the legends of St. John's endure, attracting both the faithful and the curious who seek to experience its supernatural side. Those who leave after experiencing flickering lights or the faint echo of footsteps often do so with a sense of reverence, as though they have brushed against something beyond comprehension. The church remains a place of worship, but for many, it has also become a threshold between the seen and the unseen, a reminder that faith, history, and the paranormal often intertwine in ways that defy explanation. Mission Santa Cruz, nestled in the coastal town of Santa Cruz, California, carries with it a haunting legacy that stretches back centuries. Established in 1791 by Spanish Franciscans, it was one of the smallest missions along the California Mission Trail. Yet its history is as tragic and eerie as any of its counterparts. Built along the San Lorenzo River, the mission was originally intended to bring faith, structure, and prosperity to the region. Instead, it became a place marked by disease, suffering, and death. That dark past lingers in the whispers of the present, where countless locals and visitors speak of unexplainable phenomena on the mission's grounds. The mission itself stands as a reminder of California's colonial past, though not as grand as others like San Juan Capistrano or San Carlos Borromeo. Mission Santa Cruz has a certain atmosphere that is undeniable. Its simple design belies the tragedies that took place within its adobe walls. Indigenous workers, forced into service, endured harsh labor, strict discipline, and devastating epidemics. Many died within the mission's boundaries, their graves now resting in the old cemetery nearby. Over time, The sorrow of those years seeped into the very foundation of the mission. And visitors today often speak of the heavy, almost oppressive weight in the air. Among the most commonly reported hauntings are the spectral figures said to appear on the grounds at night. Former missionaries, dressed in long robes, are often seen walking the corridors or standing silently in the chapel. Witnesses describe them as solemn, almost mournful presences, moving with slow deliberation as if still bound to their earthly duties. Equally unsettling are the apparitions of indigenous men and women, seen in fleeting glimpses near the cemetery and old work areas. Their forms are often described as shadowy and indistinct, yet their movements convey a sense of weariness, as though burdened by an unfinished struggle. Strange fogs often descend upon the mission grounds, sometimes even when the surrounding area remains clear. These mists seem to appear suddenly, enveloping the mission in a veil of gray, reducing visibility and muffling sound. Visitors caught in these fogs report feeling disoriented, as though time itself has slowed. Some claim to see shadowy figures moving within the mist, shapes that vanish when approached. Paranormal investigators have long been fascinated by this phenomenon, describing it as one of the most active and unexplainable occurrences at the mission. The cemetery of Mission Santa Cruz is perhaps the most haunted location on the property. Buried there are countless indigenous workers, missionaries, and settlers, many of whom perished during epidemics of measles and smallpox that ravaged the mission population. Visitors who wander too close to the cemetery gates at night often hear soft weeping or the faint sounds of chanting prayers. Some even report hearing the shuffle of footsteps on gravel paths, though no one is there. On certain nights, flickering lights have been seen moving between the gravestones, resembling candles carried by unseen hands. Unaccountable noises are another feature of the mission's paranormal reputation. Whispers echo along the adobe walls when the grounds are empty. Doors creak open and slam shut without any wind to explain them. Investigators with recording devices have captured voices, some speaking in Spanish, others in indigenous tongues, pleading for help, forgiveness, or simply repeating prayers from centuries ago. In the chapel, the sound of chanting has been reported, even when the mission is locked and unoccupied. One local caretaker described hearing the faint toll of a bell, though no bell had rung in decades. Those who spend time on the mission grounds often speak of the sensation of being watched. The feeling is strongest near the old cemetery and the remnants of the original mission foundations. People describe the sensation as not just being observed, but judged, as though the spirits of the past are measuring the intentions of those who walk their resting place. Some visitors report sudden chills, the air dropping in temperature without explanation, while others describe the weight of unseen hands resting on their shoulders. Stories of direct encounters persist to this day. One visitor recounted walking through the cemetery late in the evening when she saw a group of figures kneeling by a grave, their heads bowed in prayer. Thinking it was part of a candlelight vigil, she moved closer only to realize that the figures had no faces. Terrified, she fled, only to find the cemetery completely empty when she looked back. Another tale tells of a priestly figure who appears in the cloister late at night, silently gesturing as though giving a blessing, before vanishing into the darkness. The mission's haunted reputation has made it a focal point for ghost hunters. Sudden cold spots, and even disembodied voices calling their names. One group reported seeing a mist-like figure rise from the cemetery soil, drift across the mission yard, and dissolve into the night air. Mission Santa Cruz is more than a historical landmark. It is a place where the veil between past and present seems unusually thin. Its walls echo with centuries of sorrow and devotion, while its cemetery shelters restless souls who may never have found peace. Whether one believes in the supernatural or not, few can deny the heavy atmosphere that permeates the grounds. In the quiet of the evening, when the fog rolls in and the whispers rise from unseen lips, Mission Santa Cruz becomes something more than a relic of history. It becomes a reminder that the past is never truly gone and that the spirits of those who suffered there may still be walking, watching, and waiting in the shadows. Mission San Fernando Rey de España, founded in 1797 in what is now the Mission Hills neighborhood of Los Angeles. is one of the most historically significant and spiritually heavy missions in California. Built as part of the chain of Franciscan missions along El Camino Real, it was intended to bring Christianity to the indigenous Tongva and Tataviam peoples. Over 2 centuries later, the mission still stands as both a historical site and a functioning church. Yet beneath its preserved adobe walls and manicured courtyards lies a legacy riddled with tragedy, hardship, and whispers of the supernatural. To many, this mission is more than a place of prayer. It is a hotspot for paranormal encounters that continue to haunt its grounds. The mission's history is marked by suffering and loss. Like many missions in California, it became the center of colonial expansion and forced assimilation. Indigenous people were baptized, converted, and made to work on the mission grounds. Their traditions suppressed and lives irrevocably changed. Disease outbreaks spread rapidly through the confined quarters, and countless individuals perished. Their burials, often hurried and unmarked, left the mission grounds heavy with sorrow. Over time, visitors and caretakers alike have claimed that the restless spirits of these people never left. One of the most commonly reported phenomena within Mission San Fernando is the appearance of shadowy figures. Tour guides, parish staff, and nighttime visitors describe seeing shapes moving in their peripheral vision, only to vanish when directly observed. These shadows often appear in the darker corners of the old mission rooms, particularly in the corridors leading to the old workshops and storage areas. Some accounts tell of human-like silhouettes that glide silently across the walls, as if replaying moments from a forgotten past. Others claim the figures lurk just beyond reach, as though aware of the living but unwilling to reveal their full forms. Doors slamming shut without explanation have also become a defining feature of the mission's paranormal reputation. Many of these doors are heavy, made of old wood that would be difficult to move even with considerable force. Yet staff report that they often swing violently closed, despite no drafts or visible disturbances. Sometimes, the sound echoes through the church halls during quiet services, startling attendees and leaving clergy shaken. A popular legend suggests that these sudden closures are the work of spirits, trying to keep intruders out, perhaps reminding visitors that they are not welcome within certain parts of the mission. One of the most unsettling aspects of Mission San Fernando's hauntings lies in the disembodied whispers that echo through its halls. Witnesses describe them as soft and layered, as though multiple voices are speaking at once. What chills investigators most is that the whispers are often in languages that no longer exist. Some believe they may be remnants of indigenous dialects lost to time, voices of the mission's original inhabitants reaching out from beyond the grave. Others claim they have heard Latin prayers, murmured as though a priest from centuries past continues to conduct his rites unseen. The idea that the mission is a place where languages of the dead still linger adds an eerie weight to its already haunted reputation. Visitors often describe an overwhelming feeling of being watched while exploring the mission grounds. The sensation is particularly strong near the old cemetery, where rows of weathered crosses mark the resting places of early settlers and indigenous converts. Paranormal researchers say their equipment often registers spikes of energy in this area, suggesting a spiritual presence. Some visitors have even claimed to see ghostly figures kneeling in prayer among the gravestones, only for the apparitions to vanish when approached. One particularly chilling tale comes from a caretaker who worked at the mission in the late 20th century. While making his evening rounds, he reported hearing chanting from inside the chapel, long after it had been locked for the night. Peering inside, he claimed to see robed figures gathered near the altar, their forms flickering like shadows cast by candlelight. When he unlocked the door to investigate, the chapel was empty, silent, and undisturbed. Yet the smell of incense hung heavily in the air, as though some ritual had just taken place. The caretaker refused to work night shifts after that, convinced that the spirits of long-dead priests still held their ceremonies in secret. Another account tells of tourists exploring the museum portion of the mission, who heard a woman crying faintly from an adjacent room. Believing someone was in distress, they hurried over, only to find the room completely empty. Later, when recounting their story to a docent, they were told that such weeping was not uncommon. Some believe it to be the spirit of a grieving mother who lost her child during one of the mission's many disease outbreaks, her sorrow echoing through the centuries. Despite its supernatural reputation, Mission San Fernando remains a beloved landmark. It is both a place of faith and a site of historical memory, drawing thousands of visitors each year who come to admire its architecture and learn its history. But for those who linger after dark, when the courtyards fall silent and the wind stirs the ancient trees, the mission takes on another identity. It becomes a place where the veil between past and present is thin, where restless spirits whisper in forgotten tongues, and where shadows move as if the mission's tragic history still breathes within its walls. Mission San Fernando, Rey de Espaga, stands as a reminder that history is not always silent. The lives lived in, lost within its adobe walls, have left echoes too strong to be forgotten. Whether through shadow figures, slamming doors, or whispers in dead languages, the mission continues to remind us that the past does not always stay buried. For many who have walked its grounds, it is clear that the spirits of San Fernando are still very much present, watching, waiting, and haunting. St. Vibiana Cathedral in Los Angeles is one of those places where history and the supernatural collide, leaving behind a legacy that feels both sacred and unsettling. Once a cornerstone of faith and community, the cathedral eventually fell into disuse, and in its abandonment, it seemed to take on a new life, one rooted in mystery and haunting. Its ornate architecture, with high vaulted ceilings and shadow-filled corridors, now serves as a backdrop for chilling encounters that locals and investigators alike have reported over the years. The cathedral was originally built in the late 1800s, its foundation tied deeply to the Catholic expansion in California. Named after Saint Vibiana, a 3rd century Roman martyr, the building was a monument to resilience and devotion. For decades, it hosted countless weddings, funerals, and confessions, its walls holding the collective grief and joy of the community. But over time, structural damage and the changing face of the city left it abandoned. Where worshippers once filled the pews, silence now lingers, though not always peacefully. The emptiness seems to amplify every sound, every flicker of movement, until it becomes impossible to dismiss what so many have reported. One of the most common phenomena in St. Vibiana Cathedral is the sudden appearance of cold drafts. Visitors describe walking through the silent building and feeling a sharp chill that seems to come from nowhere, like the brush of unseen hands moving past them. Paranormal researchers who have investigated the site note that these drafts often appear in places where there are no windows or open doors. Some speculate that they are not natural air currents at all, but manifestations of spiritual energy spirits, attempting to make their presence known in the most tangible way possible. Strange lights have also been documented in the cathedral, and these are perhaps the most unnerving experiences reported. Witnesses speak of glowing orbs that drift across the main sanctuary, sometimes rising into the rafters before vanishing abruptly. Others claim to see faint silhouettes outlined in light, lingering at the altar or kneeling as if in prayer. Photographs taken during paranormal investigations have allegedly captured these luminous shapes, though skeptics often dismiss them as tricks of the camera. Yet those who have been inside the cathedral at night argued that what they saw felt far too real to be dismissed so easily. The sounds reported at St. Vibiana are just as compelling, if not more so. Many who have stepped inside after dark speak of disembodied whispers echoing through the vast space. These whispers often come in fragments, like the confessions of souls long gone. Investigators have captured faint recordings of murmured voices, sometimes in English, sometimes in Latin, though no one is ever present when the voices are heard. On other occasions, visitors have claimed to hear footsteps crossing the nave, pacing slowly back and forth, only to find themselves completely alone. The creaking of pews, as though unseen figures are shifting in their seats, is another common report, adding to the eerie suggestion that the church still holds a congregation, though not one of the living. Perhaps the most chilling accounts involve sightings of shadowy figures. These are not fleeting shapes caught out of the corner of the eye, but full silhouettes, captured on video and described by eyewitnesses. Some appear as robed priests moving silently through the aisles, their outlines dissolving into the air when approached. Others are darker, more ambiguous forms, standing motionless in doorways or lingering along the walls. In one infamous report, a group of investigators claimed to see a shadowy figure perched high on the balcony, watching them with an intensity that sent them fleeing from the building. When they later reviewed their footage, a faint figure was visible in the very spot they had described, though the balcony had been empty upon inspection. These persistent hauntings have sparked debate about the origins of St. Vibiana's lingering energy. Some believe the cathedral is simply imprinted with the emotions of the countless souls who pass through its doors. Weddings filled with joy, funerals heavy with grief, and countless whispered confessions may have left behind a residual energy that still echoes through the structure. Others believe the presence is more direct, that the spirits of those who died without peace, or whose faith was shaken, remain bound to the sacred grounds, unable to move on. The martyrdom of Saint Vibiana herself, to whom the cathedral was dedicated, also adds an unsettling dimension. Some argue that a place honoring a figure associated with suffering and death might attract restless energies. Skeptics have tried to explain away the cathedral's phenomena. They point to natural drafts in the aging structure, or to the way shadows and light play tricks on the eye in a building so vast and dimly lit. The whispers, they argue, could be echoes from outside or the settling of wood and stone. And yet, the sheer number of consistent reports across decades from both locals and professionals makes it difficult to dismiss entirely. Even those who enter the cathedral without expecting anything paranormal often leave with a story they cannot explain. What remains undeniable is the atmosphere of St. Vibiana Cathedral. Whether haunted or not, its walls exude a presence that is impossible to ignore. The silence inside feels too thick, the shadows too deep, the air too heavy with unspoken things. Many who visit describe an overwhelming sense of being watched, as though eyes followed them from the altar, the balcony, or the pews. That feeling alone has convinced countless individuals that the cathedral is not empty at all, but alive with something beyond comprehension. Abandoned, yet far from forgotten, St. Vibiana Cathedral stands as both a relic of Los Angeles, as spiritual past, and a monument to the mysteries of the unseen. Its legacy is not only in its architecture or its history, but in the whispers, the shadows, and the lights that continue to manifest long after the last prayer was spoken. For some, it is a place of reverence, even in decay. For others, it is a place of fear, where the veil between the living and the dead seems dangerously thin. Mission San, in Fremont, California, stands as both a historical landmark and a place of lingering mystery. Founded in 1797 as part of the chain of Spanish missions stretching across California, it was built with the purpose of spreading Christianity and establishing Spanish presence in the region. While its architecture and preserved grounds attract thousands of visitors each year, it is not just history and beauty that define this mission. For generations, there have been stories of strange occurrences, phantom monks gliding through the cloisters, disembodied chanting echoing in the chapels, and sudden, chilling drops in temperature that defy natural explanation. The mission was a bustling community in its early days, home to Franciscan friars, Native Americans brought into its fold, and settlers who contributed to its development. But like many of California's missions, it was also a site of immense hardship, disease, forced labor, and cultural upheaval, left behind sorrow and pain, emotions that many believe still cling to the mission's walls. This troubled history, combined with the mission's sacred role, seems to have given rise to a haunting atmosphere that countless visitors describe even today. One of the most commonly reported phenomena at Mission San is the appearance of phantom monks. These spectral figures, clad in long brown robes with hoods drawn low, are often glimpsed at the edges of vision. Visitors walking through the courtyard or along the mission's long corridors sometimes notice a figure moving silently ahead of them, only to vanish when they turn a corner. Some claim the apparitions glide more than walk, their feet not touching the ground, while others describe them as solid and lifelike until they suddenly dissolve into thin air. It is said that these monks continue their duties in the afterlife, tending to a mission that was once their world. In addition to apparitions, sound plays a powerful role in the mission's hauntings. One of the most chilling accounts involves disembodied chanting. Late at night, when the grounds are quiet, a soft murmur sometimes drifts through the air, as though a choir is performing ancient hymns. Paranormal investigators who have spent the night in the mission have reported hearing full voices, harmonized chanting in Latin, echoing from empty chapels and abandoned corridors. Even in broad daylight, visitors have sometimes reported the faint sound of bells ringing or whispers moving just beyond comprehension. Some skeptics attribute these sounds to acoustics or the wind, yet many insist they are far too distinct to be dismissed. The physical sensations of the hauntings are just as unsettling. Sudden drops in temperature are perhaps the most frequently reported phenomenon. Guests walking into certain areas of the mission, especially near the old church and burial grounds, describe being enveloped by an icy chill. The temperature shift is often so sharp that their breath becomes visible, even on warm summer nights. Paranormal investigators have documented these cold spots with thermal cameras, capturing abrupt dips in heat signatures without any identifiable source. Such drops in temperature, many believe, signify the presence of restless spirits. There are also stories of footsteps echoing across the mission floors long after the last visitors have gone home. Security staff, tasked with patrolling the grounds after hours, often speak of hearing deliberate, measured footsteps following them through the corridors. Sometimes the sounds are accompanied by the faint swish of fabric, as if the robes of a friar are brushing against the floor. Yet when they turn to look, no one is there. On more than one occasion, guards have resigned from their posts, unwilling to spend the night in a place where they feel constantly watched. The old cemetery adds another layer of unease to the mission's atmosphere. Burials here include Native Americans and settlers alike, their graves now weathered and marked by time. Visitors who wander near the cemetery at dusk report feeling a heaviness in the air, as though grief itself still lingers. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures moving among the graves, while others describe a strange fog that materializes suddenly, shrouding the area before disappearing without a trace. Even the birds seem reluctant to sing when the fog rolls in, leaving the space eerily silent. Paranormal researchers have been drawn to Mission Sand for decades, conducting investigations to capture evidence of its spectral residence. Recordings often yield unexplained audio phantom whispers, prayers, or soft chanting that was not heard during the investigation itself. While skeptics argue that these are products of suggestion and imagination, the consistency of reports from unrelated witnesses across generations is difficult to dismiss. Local legend holds that the spirits remain not out of malice, but out of devotion. The monks, bound to their mission, may continue their prayers and rituals, ensuring the space remains sacred. The Native Americans, whose lives were profoundly altered by the mission system, may linger as well, their presence a reminder of both faith and suffering. The blend of cultures, histories, and tragedies seems to have created a spiritual imprint, one that refuses to fade with time. Even today, many visitors leave Mission Sand with a sense of awe mixed with unease. The mission is beautiful, its whitewashed walls and bell towers a testament to California's rich past. But beneath the beauty lies something otherworldly. Those who visit at night speak of shadows that move where there should be none, of voices carried on the wind, and of a feeling that they are never truly alone. Whether these experiences are the echoes of history or genuine encounters with the supernatural, Mission Sand remains a place where the past refuses to stay silent. This enduring sense of presence makes the mission more than just a monument. It is a living reminder of those who walked its halls, prayed in its chapels, and suffered within its walls. For those who step onto its grounds, the line between history and haunting is thin, and the whispers of the past still linger in the cool, ghostly air. Mission Santa Ysabel, tucked into the rolling hills of San Diego County, is one of California's lesser-known missions, yet its serene exterior hides stories of mystery and unexplainable phenomena. Built in 1818 as an assistencia, or submission, of Mission San Diego decay, was intended to minister to the Kumeyaay people and serve as an outpost for the Spanish colonists. While its structure may appear humble compared to its grander counterparts, the mission carries a heavy atmosphere, one that visitors often describe as charged with a lingering presence. Many who step onto the grounds report an immediate sense of being watched, as if unseen eyes follow their every movement. The mission grounds, though modest, are strikingly peaceful during the day. Sunlight illuminates the whitewashed adobe walls, and the bells hanging above the chapel seem frozen in time. But as the sun begins to set and shadows lengthen across the hills, the mood changes. Those who wander the grounds after dark speak of strange sights and feelings that defy explanation. Ghostly figures, sometimes described as monks in brown habits, have been seen silently walking near the chapel. Their forms appear solid at first, but within moments dissolve into thin air, leaving behind only the sound of faint footsteps fading into silence. One of the most chilling areas associated with the mission is its cemetery. The burial ground lies close to the chapel, and many believe it holds not just the remains of early settlers and native converts, but also their restless spirits. Reports of mysterious lights glowing near the graves are common, described as soft blue or white orbs that hover just above the ground before vanishing when approached. Paranormal investigators who have visited the site have attempted to capture the phenomenon on camera, often with mixed success. Some photographs reveal unexplained streaks of light. Stories from locals add to the mystery. Some recount encounters with a spectral woman dressed in old Spanish clothing, seen wandering between the mission and the nearby cemetery. Her face is often obscured, and she moves with a grace that seems otherworldly. Witnesses describe her appearing in complete silence, only to vanish as quickly as she arrived. Many speculate she may have been a settleress wife, or perhaps a woman tied to the mission, whose story was lost to time. Others believe she represents the sorrow of those whose lives were transformed, and in many cases, cut short during the mission era. The chapel itself has also been the site of eerie activity. Visitors who sit quietly inside often report hearing faint chanting, as though a service is being conducted by unseen voices. The chanting is described as soft and rhythmic, resonating through the space, even when the chapel is empty. At times, people have also claimed to hear the ringing of the mission bell at odd hours, despite no one being near it. Sudden drops in temperature inside the chapel are another frequently reported phenomenon, with icy drafts sweeping across the pews even on warm summer nights. One particularly unsettling account involves a caretaker who once lived near the mission. He claimed that on several nights he would hear footsteps outside his quarters, slow and deliberate, pacing back and forth along the mission walls. When he would investigate, there was never anyone present, yet the footsteps continued as though mocking his attempts to catch the culprit. Eventually, he grew so disturbed by the repeated experiences that he refused to stay near the mission after dark. Not all encounters are frightening, however. Some visitors have described feelings of calm and reverence, even when witnessing unusual events. A few believe the spectral monks and figures are guardians, still keeping watch over the mission they once served. Their presence, while unsettling, is not always perceived as hostile. Instead, many feel it is a reminder of the deep history etched into the land and the lives that once revolved around the mission. Despite its modest size, Mission Santa Jezebel continues to draw interest from those fascinated by the supernatural. Paranormal groups often include it on their itineraries, setting up equipment in hopes of capturing voices or apparitions. Some have recorded faint whispers in Spanish, words too soft and fragmented to be fully understood. Others claim to have seen shadowy figures moving just outside the range of their flashlights. These experiences contribute to the mission's reputation as a place where the past and present intertwine in mysterious ways. The mission's isolation only adds to its eerie reputation. Surrounded by quiet hills and far removed from the bustle of modern cities, it feels frozen in time, an echo of California's early days. The silence of the countryside creates the perfect backdrop for unexplained noises, whispers that drift on the wind, footsteps crunching on gravel, or the faint toll of a bell that no one has rung. Visitors often leave with the impression that the mission is alive in ways that cannot be explained. Its walls holding on to stories and spirits long forgotten by history. Mission Santa Jezebel stands as both a historic landmark and a place of supernatural curiosity. By day, it is a reminder of California's mission period, a quiet relic preserved against the march of time. By night, however, it transforms into something far more mysterious. The spectral monks, glowing lights, and unseen presences are part of its identity, weaving together history and legend in a way that keeps people coming back. For those who visit, the mission offers more than just a glimpse into the past. It offers the chance to feel, if only for a moment, the lingering touch of lives that have never truly departed. Mission San Miguel in San Miguel, California, is one of the most beautiful yet unsettling of the historic missions. Founded in 1797 by the Franciscan Order, it stands as a preserved reminder of California's Spanish colonial past. Its weathered adobe walls and richly painted interiors still echoing with centuries of devotion, labor, and tragedy. Like many missions, it was built on the labor of indigenous people, and its history is filled with stories of hardship, sacrifice, and untimely death. Today, it is remembered not only for its religious and cultural significance, but also for its reputation as one of the most haunted sites in the region. Visitors, caretakers, and paranormal investigators have all reported eerie phenomena within its walls, manifestations that suggest the spirits of the past have not fully departed. One of the most persistent accounts from the mission is that of ghostly chanting. Late at night, when the mission is quiet and empty, people passing by or staying nearby have claimed to hear faint voices rising in rhythmic patterns, as though a choir of monks were gathered in the chapel long after the doors had been closed. The sound is described as low and resonant, echoing with a reverence that seems both beautiful and unnerving. Some say the chanting is in Latin, the language of the early church, while others insist it is in Spanish or even the native Salinan tongue, once spoken by the mission's indigenous community. Whatever the source, the chanting comes and goes without explanation, always vanishing when someone enters to investigate. Inside the mission itself, there are countless stories of candles flickering to life with no visible flame or source of ignition. Visitors have walked into the church to find rows of votive candles burning in the dim air, though no one had lit them. The most unsettling detail is that the flames often seem to burn without consuming the wax. Some have stood in awe, watching the candlelight dance, only for the flames to extinguish themselves suddenly, plunging the chapel into darkness. Others have reported seeing candles light one after another, as though guided by invisible hands moving slowly down the row. It is as if the spirits of those who once worshipped there still return to offer prayers, leaving behind an unsettling reminder of their presence. The mission's long history of death and tragedy is often cited as the reason for its haunted reputation. Fires, disease, and violence touched the mission during its early years. Many indigenous laborers who helped build its adobe walls died from illness or harsh conditions, their lives bound to the mission through both faith and suffering. Their bodies were often interred in simple graves near the mission grounds, and it is said their spirits still wander the area. Some visitors have described seeing shadowy figures walking along the pathways, dressed in clothing from centuries past. These apparitions vanish without a trace when approached, leaving only the impression of watchful eyes and lingering sorrow. One particular area that draws much attention is the old cemetery near the mission. Strange lights are often reported here, glowing orbs that drift between the headstones or rise from the earth, like will-o'-the-wisps. Witnesses describe them as pale blue or ghostly white, moving slowly before fading into the night. Some believe the lights are the souls of the departed, still searching for peace in the place they were laid to rest. The mission's interior is no less unsettling. Guests have reported sudden drops in temperature when walking through the main chapel, as though passing through an unseen presence. Others have heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing across the tile floors, though no one else was present. Doors creak open and slam shut without cause, and whispers seem to drift through the air. too faint to decipher, but persistent enough to send chills down the spine. Perhaps the most unnerving stories are those of direct encounters with apparitions. More than one caretaker has claimed to see the figure of a Franciscan friar moving silently through the mission corridors, always dressed in the brown robe and hood of the order. The figure seemed solid at first glance, only to fade into nothing when followed. Some believe this is the spirit of an early missionary who still tends to the site, unwilling to abandon the place he dedicated his life to. Others insist it may be a manifestation of the countless monks who once called the mission home, returning in spectral form to continue their eternal service. Visitors sometimes leave with an unshakable sense of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow them from room to room. The weight of history is heavy in Mission San Miguel, and even skeptics admit that its atmosphere feels charged, as though the past lingers just out of sight. The blend of faith, tragedy, and time seems to have left an imprint too strong to fade, creating a place where the veil between the living and the dead grows thin. Mission San Miguel is, at its heart, a place of beauty and reverence, but it is also a place where the restless dead are said to roam. The ghostly chanting, the mysterious candle flames, and the apparitions of monks and indigenous spirits all weave together into a haunting tapestry that keeps the mission alive in both memory and mystery. For those who step into its shadowed halls, the experience is unforgettable, a reminder that some voices of the past still echo, waiting to be heard in the silence of the present. Mission San Fernando de Vallecate in Los Angeles carries with it a long history that blurs the line between devotion and despair. And it is within that tension that its paranormal reputation was born. Established centuries ago, the mission once served as a place of worship and refuge. Yet its walls also absorbed sorrow, hardship, and death. Today, many who step onto the grounds report that something unseen lingers. The building seems alive, humming with energy that cannot be explained by mere age. Shadows move where no one stands, footsteps echo through empty corridors, and bells ring in deserted towers, as if unseen hands are determined to remind the living that the past is never truly gone. Visitors often describe a heavy feeling settling over them the moment they pass through the mission's weathered gates. The courtyard, though peaceful at first glance, seems to carry an air of watchfulness. Many have sworn that, in the quiet of dusk, they heard sandals scuffing across stone paths, footsteps paced in deliberate rhythm, only to vanish when the sound is followed. The sensation is unnerving because the noise doesn't fade away like a natural echo. Instead, it stops abruptly, as though the unseen walker has suddenly become aware that it was noticed. Inside the mission itself, the phenomenon grows stronger. Tourists and caretakers alike tell of seeing figures in robes drifting across the hallways. They appear only in peripheral vision, flickering into existence like shadows caught in candlelight, then dissolving into the walls. Some describe them as monks, stoic and silent, their presence tied to the mission's earliest days when clergy worked tirelessly to establish a place of worship among the native population. Yet others feel these shadowy figures are not peaceful, but restless, wandering endlessly as though bound to duties never fulfilled. The sound of bells is perhaps the most chilling and widely reported occurrence. The mission's bell tower stands proudly, though much of its original structure has aged. The bells no longer ring with regularity, yet dozens of witnesses have heard them toll at odd hours, midnight, 3 in the morning, or during afternoons when no one is present. The tones are described as hollow, faint, and somehow far away, as though they come not from the present world, but from another time entirely. On more than one occasion, visitors have rushed to the bell tower, expecting to find someone pulling the ropes, only to discover it completely deserted. Even more unsettling, some claim the ropes themselves sway slowly, moving as if an invisible hand has just released them. The church within the mission is equally notorious for unexplained activity. People have felt sudden drops in temperature, patches of icy air that drift without cause. On rare occasions, voices are heard, whispered prayers in languages that no one can identify. Some speculate they are remnants of long-forgotten dialects, spoken by indigenous people forced into conversion. while others believe the voices belong to the missionaries themselves, their devotion stretching beyond the grave. Recordings made by paranormal investigators have captured faint chanting, solemn and rhythmic, though no singers were present during the sessions. Accounts also describe personal encounters with forces unseen. One visitor reported kneeling in the pews, only to feel a hand gently press upon their shoulder. When they turned, the church was empty. Another claimed that they were pushed with surprising force while walking alone near the sacristy, stumbling forward as though someone unseen had shoved them aside. Skeptics dismiss these as tricks of the imagination, products of the eerie setting and heavy history. But the consistency of such stories keeps the legend alive. The cemetery behind the mission deepens its haunted reputation. Here, rows of old headstones lie weathered and crumbling, many marking the graves of those who lived, worked, and died within the mission's orbit. Lantern-like lights are often reported floating between the graves, glowing orbs that hover silently before fading into the darkness. Witnesses describe them as neither bright nor dim, but oddly steady, almost as if guiding or watching. Some even claim to have seen full-bodied apparitions near the cemetery. Pale outlines of men and women dressed in centuries-old clothing. The most unsettling reports come from those who swear they saw a procession of ghostly figures carrying candles, moving silently across the grounds in ritual, only to vanish before reaching the chapel doors. Caretakers and locals speak of an energy that intensifies at night. The mission becomes unusually still, yet sounds persist, shuffling, knocking, doors creaking open and slamming shut when no breeze is present. Whispers drift through hallways, some too faint to understand, others startlingly clear. There are moments when the mission seems to breathe, as though it is not a mere structure but something alive, feeding off the memories and tragedies stored within its stone walls. For paranormal investigators, Mission San Fernando de Velicat is a site of fascination. Teams have recorded unexplainable electromagnetic spikes, captured eerie photographs of misty figures, and even documented disembodied voices answering questions during EVP sessions. In one chilling account, an investigator asked aloud if anyone was present, and the playback revealed a whispered reply in Spanish, "Siempre," which means always. Whether the activity stems from restless missionaries, indigenous spirits, or the sheer weight of history is a matter of debate. What remains clear is that the mission is a place where the past refuses to remain silent. Every creak, every flicker of shadow, and every toll of an unseen bell seems to remind visitors that they are not alone. Those who step foot on the grounds of Mission San Fernando de Velicat quickly learn that it is more than just an old building. It is a vessel of memories, a place where devotion and sorrow intertwine, and where the line between the living and the dead grows thin. To this day, the echoes of history refuse to fade, lingering as spectral reminders of a time long gone, yet never truly forgotten. Mission San Antonio de Padua, tucked deep within Monterey County, holds a haunting atmosphere that seems to seep into its very walls. Established in 1771 by Spanish Franciscan missionaries, it was one of the earliest missions in California. Built with the goal of spreading Christianity and securing Spain's foothold in the region. Remote and isolated, surrounded by rugged hills and sprawling landscapes, the mission is one of the few that has retained its historic solitude. But behind its weathered adobe walls and quiet courtyards lies a legacy of struggle, death, and whispered stories of spirits that never left. From the moment visitors step onto the grounds, many report an unsettling sensation. The mission's gardens, lush during the day with ancient olive trees and fragrant flowers, transform into something otherworldly at night. Moonlight stretches shadows across the crumbling pathways, and countless visitors claim to have seen translucent figures moving silently among the plants. These apparitions are often described as friars in hooded robes, gliding slowly as if still tending to the land or lost in prayer. The sightings are frequent enough that staff and paranormal investigators alike have cataloged them as one of the mission's most common hauntings. The old cloisters of Mission San Antonio de Padua, where the monks once lived, are another focal point of paranormal reports. These narrow passageways, lit dimly by lanterns, have long been considered one of the most active areas. Visitors walking through them have described feeling sudden drops in temperature, icy drafts sweeping across their skin, and an overwhelming sense of being followed. On more than one occasion, witnesses have claimed to see robed figures peering from doorways or standing silently at the end of the corridor, only to vanish when approached. The echo of footsteps, slow, deliberate, and impossibly clear, has been reported countless times, though the halls remain empty. Beyond the cloisters, the mission grounds tell a tragic story. Disease struck the native population who lived and worked here, often devastating entire families. Coupled with the harsh demands of mission life, these conditions left a trail of suffering that many believe imprinted itself onto the land. Some visitors report hearing faint crying or whispers carried on the wind, especially near the burial sites surrounding the mission. These voices are often described as soft but mournful, too distinct to be mistaken for the rustle of leaves or the cry of wildlife. At times, the voices swell into what sounds like distant chanting, as if a congregation is gathered somewhere beyond sight, engaged in a ritual that no longer exists. The mission's church, preserved with its striking architecture and solemn interior, also plays host to eerie phenomena. Candles within the sanctuary are said to flicker on their own, even in the absence of a draft. A few visitors have even witnessed them ignite without explanation, as though unseen hands had lit them in prayer. Paranormal groups who have investigated the site claim to have captured strange voices in recordings, including whispers in Spanish and Latin, as well as unexplainable bursts of organ music, despite the instruments sitting untouched. The church itself seems to exude a powerful energy, beautiful and serene during the day, but at night, that same serenity twists into an almost oppressive silence, broken only by phantom sounds. The surrounding landscape adds to the mission's haunting reputation. At night, strange lights are sometimes seen dancing near the edges of the property, particularly by the mission cemetery. These orbs, described as glowing white or bluish in hue, drift between the headstones before vanishing into the darkness. Skeptics suggest they may be swamp gas or reflections of headlights. But the mission's isolation makes such explanations less convincing. Those who have seen the lights up close insist they moved with intention, weaving between graves as if guided by unseen souls. Many visitors leave Mission San Antonio to Padua, convinced that the spirits here are not malicious but rather restless. The hardships endured by both the missionaries and the native people seem to echo through the mission's walls, replaying themselves as fragments of memory. The apparitions in the gardens and cloisters, the chanting in the wind, the mysterious voices all suggest a community still present in some spectral form. Some believe the friars continue their devotion even in death, walking the cloisters and lighting candles in eternal service. Others argue the spirits of the oppressed and sick linger as reminders of the suffering that once consumed the mission. What makes the site particularly chilling is its remoteness. Unlike missions in bustling cities, Mission San Antonio sits alone in a vast stretch of countryside. At night, the silence is profound, broken only by the occasional rustle of wildlife or the whisper of wind. For those exploring after dark, every unexplained sound and shadow is amplified by the isolation. It creates an environment where the boundary between the living and the dead feels thin, as if the spirits of the past are always watching from just beyond the candlelight. Today, the mission stands as both a historical landmark and a hotspot for paranormal enthusiasts. Tourists arrive seeking its beauty and history, but many leave with stories of strange encounters they cannot explain. Whether it is the chill of unseen presences in the cloisters, the flickering of candles in the church, or the glowing orbs drifting over the cemetery, the reports continue to mount, weaving a tapestry of ghostly lore that refuses to fade. Mission San Antonio de Padua may have been built as a place of faith and community, but for many, it remains a place where the past refuses to rest. Its gardens, cloisters, and chapels hold whispers of devotion and despair, making it one of California's most compelling and haunted sites. Tucked away in San Luis Obispo County lies the remnants of Mission Santa Margarita, a site that, while less renowned than other California missions, carries with it a legacy steeped in both history and dread. Founded in the late 1700s, during Spain's expansion into Alta California, it was established as a small submission to serve the spiritual and agricultural needs of the surrounding area. But unlike its larger counterparts, Santa Margarita never flourished in the same way. Disease, drought, and hardship plagued the mission, and over time it slipped into disrepair, eventually abandoned and left to the elements. Today, little remains of its original structures, but what does endure is a reputation for being cursed, an atmosphere so oppressive that locals avoid the grounds entirely after dark. Those who dare to venture near the ruins at night tell of a feeling unlike any other, a sensation of being watched, stalked, as though unseen eyes follow every step. Paranormal investigators who have braved the grounds with cameras and recorders often describe the air as heavy, charged with something unnatural. The silence of the countryside seems magnified here, broken only by the sudden rustle of unseen movement or the distant echo of sounds that have no earthly source. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at Mission Santa Margarita is the appearance of strange lights. These lights, described as glowing orbs, hover across the fields surrounding the mission or drift lazily among the ruins. Witnesses claim they sometimes pulse or flicker, vanishing the moment anyone approaches. For some, they resemble lanterns, as though long-dead padres continue their nightly rounds. For others, they appear as ghostly flames, of menace, reminders of suffering and death tied to the mission's troubled past. Investigators have tried to capture these anomalies on film, and while some images show faint glows, skeptics often dismiss them as tricks of light or dust. Still, the sheer consistency of the reports makes them difficult to ignore. But the lights are not the only unsettling activity linked to the site. Visitors describe disembodied sounds echoing across the grounds, footsteps crunching through gravel where no one walks, whispers carried on the wind, and the distant tolling of a bell that no longer exists. More chilling still are reports of chanting, faint yet unmistakable, resembling the mournful tones of Mission-era hymns. To stand in the ruins at night and hear such sounds is said to leave even the bravest with chills, as though the past itself is bleeding through into the present. Many attribute these disturbances to the hardships endured during the mission's brief life. Disease swept through the community, claiming countless lives. Accounts suggest that burial grounds near Santa Margarita became overcrowded, and some say the dead were laid to rest without proper ceremony. Others whisper that the land itself resisted Spanish colonization, that the mission was doomed from its inception. This belief that Santa Margarita was cursed still lingers in local folklore, passed down through generations of families who refuse to tread near its grounds after sundown. Electronic devices malfunction, batteries drain in minutes, and audio recorders sometimes capture unexplained voices. One team claimed to hear a male voice in Latin, reciting what sounded like a prayer, though no one else was present at the time. Another group reported seeing a figure in robes, faint and translucent, standing in one of the ruined chapels before vanishing like smoke. Locals, too, share unsettling stories. Some claim to have seen spectral figures wandering the fields, their shapes indistinct but human in form. Others describe shadowy presences lurking at the edges of their vision, always just out of reach. A few even insist they've been physically touched, brushed by invisible hands, or pushed by unseen forces while exploring the ruins. Such accounts have only deepened the mission's reputation as one of the most haunted sites in the county. While some dismiss the tales as superstition or exaggeration, the aura of Mission Santa Margarita is undeniable. By day, the ruins stand as a reminder of California's colonial past, silent and unassuming beneath the sun. But by night, they transform into something far more sinister. A place where time seems to fracture and the boundary between the living and the dead grows perilously thin. The mission's history is one of abandonment, struggle, and loss, a past that seems unwilling to fade quietly into obscurity. Whether the hauntings are the result of restless spirits, the residue of human suffering, or merely the imagination fueled by centuries of ghost stories. One thing remains certain. Mission Santa Margarita has earned its reputation as a cursed place. For those brave enough to stand within its crumbling walls at night, the line between legend and reality becomes frighteningly blurred. Even now, few are willing to linger after dark. The stories are too persistent, the experiences too real, and the weight of the past too heavy to ignore. In San Luis Obispo County, Mission Santa Margarita is more than just a forgotten ruin. It is a reminder of a haunting legacy that refuses to rest, a place where shadows still walk, voices still whisper, and a curse lingers over the land. California's haunted churches are more than mere buildings. They are repositories of history, tragedy, and the unexplained. Each mission and church tells a story, not only of faith and devotion, but also of human suffering and lingering spirits. From ghostly monks wandering cloisters to mysterious lights flickering across cemeteries, the legends surrounding these sacred sites have persisted through centuries, bridging the gap between history and the paranormal. For those brave enough to visit, these churches offer more than architectural beauty and historical insight. They provide a glimpse into the supernatural, a chilling reminder that some places retain the echoes of the past long after the living have gone. The next time you walk past a California mission or step inside a centuries-old church, remember that the air may carry more than incense and prayers. Somewhere in the shadows, the past may be watching, waiting, or even moving just out of sight. Thank you for joining us on this spine-tingling journey through California's 25 most cursed churches. We hope this exploration has left you both fascinated and unsettled, reminding us all that history often leaves more than memories behind. It leaves whispers, shadows, and mysteries that refuse to rest.